host, Rob G from FEARNET. All right.
My name is Elric Kane.
Which one of you guys brought the baby?
Yeah.
This is terrible. No.
We didn't even get to the name of the show yet, guys.
Welcome to Brian Collins' Crypt.
Or his future. Anyway, I'm Rob G from FEARNET Icons of Fright. To my left is Elric Kane from Jump Cut Cafe.
Yeah.
Inside Horror.
A bunch of stuff. Yeah, I want to.
A bunch of stuff.
Are we going to apologize in advance for that? If this is your first time hearing the show, please do yourself a service and go back and listen to another episode just to know what the show is, because tonight might go firmly off the rails.
It's good. Yeah, probably. Alrighty. We're already off the rails.
Yeah.
Our other co-host, Rebekah McKendry from Fangoria.
Hello, gents. How are you doing today?
Great.
Excellent.
All right. And we have 3 guests sitting in the wings. I'll introduce them now, and they're going to wait while we go through what we've seen in the week anyway.
Yeah, you guys can't talk yet.
They've all been here, though. They've all been here before, so that's exciting.
I never left.
Brian Collins just sleeps on the couch.
He just got quiet.
Yeah, that voice is from Badass Digest, Brian Collins.
Hi.
Welcome back, sir.
Thank you.
A filmmaker friend of ours that was on our, I think, 7th episode. It was
the one I was giving birth to.
Yeah, so when you were doing that,
Please don't make that sound anymore, guys. I have nightmares.
We have the sound thing now hooked up, so we're very excited. Welcome, director Dave Parker.
Hello, Cleveland.
Hey.
All right, we're gonna get that's gonna get old really fast.
It's definitely the last 5 hours.
Yeah, exactly. And that last voice is another filmmaker friend of ours, and also the curator of Secret 16 at the Jump Cut Cafe, Mike Williamson.
Oh, hello.
That's not a sound effect. That's an actual sound. So yeah, we have the whole gang here. It's gonna turn into a debate episode a little bit later. The reason being is I think this started when Rebekah mentioned Freddy's Nightmares. Freddy's Dead.
I said last week that I loved Freddy's Dead. And
No, weeks ago. This is like a couple. No, I saw it. Remember, I came in and I said, I watched the first 10 minutes. No, first 5 minutes are cool. And then Tom Arnold and Roseanne Barr showed up, and I was just like, the worst thing. And then I think you said you liked it.
I love that one.
That's right. And then
on Twitter, Mike Williamson came to her defense saying,
I love Freddy's Dead.
He's like,
I'm passionate about Freddy's Dead.
So am I.
Passionate.
It also came up last week when we were talking, or maybe 2 weeks ago, we were talking about the Hellraiser sequels, and I said I really like Deader. I think that is a really strong movie.
This is a podcast,
then we
and
got
no
the
one can see
conversation
Dave shaking his head no at everything we say.
Dave will be siding with me by the end of it. It's going to happen.
We'll see about
that. It might take a little bit more whiskey.
But that's why you wore makeup.
Okay, Deader is the one. Deader is the one about the kids in Bucharest who've discovered how to kill themselves and bring themselves back to life afterwards.
Deader is the one that was an original script that they jammed cenobites into.
Which is why I think it works a little.
Yeah. So actually, all those sequels from like
Inferno
5 on.
Yeah, from Inferno on.
I think Inferno might have been. No?
No, because that's Scott Derrickson, and he definitely went in under the I'm going to direct a Hellraiser sequel.
What's the one where it happens that's like 4 movies in one, ends up in space?
Yeah. That's 4.
That's 4.
That's kind of interesting. Kind of boring, but kind of interesting.
But the funny thing about that was a great script.
Yeah.
And they totally just destroyed it in production.
Bloodlines?
The script was really,
Is that Peter
really
Atkins?
good.
Who directed that?
It was Peter. It was the last
Smithy movie.
It was Kevin Yeager originally.
Oh.
And then Joe Chappelle
came in.
Fixed it, yeah.
Phantom's Joe Chappelle.
Ben Affleck is the bomb in Phantom's Joe.
Halloween 6 Joe Chappelle. We've already spilled.
Oh my god.
Oh my God, Elric is spewing beer
The
everywhere.
microphone's going to short out.
Spewing beer.
We're okay.
We're gonna get on track here. All right. So first thing,
He's a little OCD. He's going to keep us on track. I like it.
Good luck.
what's that? The Wish. All right.
Yeah, okay,
so,
now we're ready to go.
So all right. So we'll start. Elric and Rebekah had stuff they saw that they wanted to talk
That's
about.
a really great film.
Go for it. What did you see?
I almost said masterpiece, but I had to hold back.
Okay.
Because it wasn't quite a masterpiece. And it's not the marked ones. The marked ones, I'll talk about first. The marked ones, I really liked it. I thought it was a really fun
Did you see
film.
that with Matt Curry Holmes?
I did see it, yeah. We started at like 11 at night.
Did you hold hands?
I liked it. You had already seen it.
No, but I was supposed to go see a movie with him. And I think we're going to go see Devil's Due this week.
Yeah, but don't even bother from what I hear, right?
I have to see
That
it
was
for...
really boring.
Wow. Now, if Mike says it's really boring, that means it is a piece of
It's a rare
shit.
case where I agree, though.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong.
Yeah, and apparently Radio Silence said the same thing, so it's probably a bad sign. Marked Ones is real. I thought it was a really fun movie. I maybe was a little excited when I talked to Mike about it after saying it was a great film, but it was, from what I was expecting, it was a great film. You know, I went in thinking nothing. I thought it'd be worse than the fourth. I thought the characters were really likable. The effect shots were really kind of great. You know, nothing surprising happens. They don't move the overall story forward much, but if you get to see gangbangers versus witches, even for a minute, you're going to walk out kind of satisfied.
That was the only
awesome, actually.
Yeah, no, I thought it was fun. It was a fun movie, but then I saw the movie.
Wasn't that the thing you were hoping for, though? You were saying, like, if this movie has...
I was in the middle of the movie, and I said, if this ends with a gangbanger taking on a witch, like blowing away a witch, I'll be, like, thrilled. And then, like, 3 minutes later, boom. But no spoiler there, even though that is a spoiler. Yeah, exactly. And then I saw actually a great movie that I wanted to see before we did our top 10s, but couldn't get a hand on it. Dick lent me We Are What We Are.
Yeah.
And the thing about the film was that in the first...
Hand on his dick. It's like, what's going on?
Save it for the debates.
Makes a whole different kind of movie.
Save it for the debates. This is serious. Now, I thought the first 30 minutes, I was like, oh, this is beautifully made, but it didn't have like the pulse. The original Mexican version of this film has a really unnerving, strange quality about it. Ancestral, weird. It's the mother and these kids instead of a father and the kids. And so this is a very different film. Which is great. That's the way to do a remake.
I thought
it is. It's very quiet.
Had a very kind of passive.
It did.
Quality to
until
it.
a certain point, and then the last 10 minutes was the best 10 minutes of any movie last year. Like really, the last 10 minutes I was like, whoa. Like I actually literally kind of my head went back for a second. I was like, this is fucking rad. And it ended so well that it colored all the rest of the film. And the score is great. It looks great. Jim Mickles, you know, he's really making strides each film, and you gotta respect that. So really worth seeing. If you haven't seen that, that would probably be placed in my top 5 had I been making my list right now. So highly recommend it. But that ending is so good.
Nice.
It just isn't as it's not as creepy as the other film, because the other film you don't know what the hell is about to happen, because it's just such a bizarre energy. Has anyone seen that, the Mexican version? Yeah, you know, it's just weird, and there's weird between the brother and sister. It's just one of those films you don't know what to expect. This you kind of know where it's going, but when it finally takes some twists, it really works. I thought you liked it, right?
I loved it. Yeah, I watched it a couple times now. And yeah, like the score.
Score's
one. I think it's my favorite. At least definitely my favorite horror score of the past year.
I won that score at trivia.
Oh, nice.
Excellent.
Really
but that was the film when I tweeted.
Yeah,
he does.
Jeff Grace, but somebody else too. Like there's like some of them. Like Jeff, if I remember correctly, Jeff. Like,
it is another guy
wrote
too.
A lot of music that they put in, and then they realized they needed more, and Jeff was unavailable, so they had these other guys, and their stuff is good too.
Right.
So, but the CD has both plus a couple songs.
Cool.
This weekend was when I tweeted that thing where I said I want less Larry Fessenden cameos and more Larry Fessenden, because in this, you know, he keeps popping up for one scene in movies, and after a while it kind of pisses me off, because I'm like, yeah, you're actually probably a better actor
Larry
than
Fessenden?
Yeah, Jug Face. He had a good role.
No, that's why I loved him in Jug Face.
But in We Are, it's like one. There's a lot of films last year where, and, you know, including The Battery in a sense, right, where he's a voice, where you're like, I would kind of like to see him as a lead role again, like, you know, back in the Habit days. I don't know if he's up, like if he even wants to do that.
Well,
anymore.
I think he's so busy because he says yes to everything. He's doing all these bit parts. So
but it's good. I'm sure it helps the films get made, you know, which is great. Good film.
Anything else that you saw?
Well, Secret 16. What did we watch, Mike?
Joe Dante's Hollywood Boulevard,
which I've never seen.
Oh, you really?
I hadn't seen it.
Had you seen it, Brian? Oh,
I
neither
am
of you had
so
seen it.
intrigued by this, because I watched this and it was one of those films like I'm alone. I watched it by myself in my apartment one night and I was so bored by it. And then I heard all these people leaving Secret 16 and they were like, it's such a great movie. And I was like, did I see the same thing? Joe Dante's first film, right?
Yeah.
He made it
Boring
with Corman on a dare.
the way I describe it.
Neither the demons and neither the demon are different.
Oh my God, Mike, I'm coming across this table, bitch.
No, Hollywood Boulevard is hilarious.
Dick Miller at his finest.
Really clever.
Improv.
He did that with Alan Arkush, right?
Yeah,
that was their co-directing.
Wasn't it made on a dare? That's the story I always heard. Is like,
who knows if that's true.
It was made in 10 days.
But there's at least a good 20 minutes of
Jack Hill outtakes,
stock footage.
Yeah.
But it's used so effectively, and it's it's hilarious.
Actually.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
If you didn't know, if you're maybe a little naive. Like Rebecca or something, then you would not realize.
Oh
I got cheated.
oh my God, you have cheese in your eye. Are you okay? I was aiming for your mouth, man. I'm sorry.
We had footage from the movies, but I thought it was going to be something like what's that Steve Martin thing where he kind of goes...
Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid.
I love that.
Great film. Carl Reiner. I love that film.
But I do recall it as a comedy.
It is a comedy. No, it's totally a comedy.
Yeah, it's not really hard. It's just the fact that it's Joe Dante. And the thing, I'd never heard of it either. So I was completely surprised.
You hadn't seen it either?
No.
Oh my God, I had no idea. None of these people had seen it.
It was cool. It was a lot of fun. And the thing I liked about it was... it's, if you know anything about their Corman days, especially if you watch the documentary Corman's World and they talk a bit about it, it's so like the movie version of what it was like for them to work for Corman.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's it works great as, an expose and exploitation filmmaking. It's also clearly itself an exploitation film. There's so much nudity in that movie.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
It's really great.
Oh, I have to go back and rewatch this.
Not to brag, because really not, but in a strange way, while you guys were screening Hollywood Boulevard, I was hanging out with Joe Dante.
Oh, really?
At that same time. Oh, as you were.
I made an appearance too, and I made sure not to mention that we were watching.
Oh, he knew.
Okay, as long as he knew about it.
No, he knew.
I felt bad.
And we did a double of that and David Lynch's Mulholland Drive. So it was my L.A. Actress. Is a dangerous profession.
One is on the nose, and the other is under the surface.
Well, it's so cool that I didn't even know there was a 16 print of Mulholland Drive.
Yeah,
That's so awesome.
What's the story?
David Lynch probably doesn't even know.
Is it like a different cut or something? Weren't you saying something like that?
When they released it on DVD and all subsequent digital formats, what's her name? Lorraine. What's her actress's name?
Elena Harding.
Asked that her bush be blurred in the nude scene. So so it's blurred now. But
not on 16 millimeter.
And it's really
That's
it's obscured anyways in the movie. It's really shadowy and everything. Yeah. But
and we also told little known facts from Monty Hellman. Silent Night, Deadly Night 3. Did I tell you this on the night that I found out because Laura Elena Herring's the star of Silent Night, Deadly Night boob job, and there's actually also the what's the white trash guy who beats up Madchen Amick in Twin Peaks?
Eric DeRay.
He's in Silent Night, Deadly. There's like a few people, and I was like, oh, that's weird. And Monty said it's the same casting director cast Silent Night, Deadly Night 3 and Twin Peaks, and then Mulholland Drive, and that's why those people appear in all three of those.
Yeah, I was just really hoping that David Lynch was a huge fan of Silent Night.
That would have been cool.
He's just like, I gotta get away from this movie.
I love that chick. I just wish she had implants.
Done.
Yeah, well done.
Becca, what did you see this week?
Well, on a David Lynch note, I have to say I checked out his novel on transcendental meditation on tape from the library, and it is the weirdest thing ever. David Lynch.
The Catching the Big Fish?
Yep.
Oh, that's a good book.
It's so frustrating, because it doesn't tell you how to do it.
No, yeah. You have to pay for that.
Transcendental meditation book makes you frustrated.
Yeah, because it doesn't tell you how to do any of it.
It's very much like find your center.
It just talks about all the benefits of it, but it has no guide at all.
There were some good lines in there, though.
This entire week, I've been driving around LA listening to David Lynch narrate what I should be doing with my life. So
sit in a quiet room.
Find your center. It's hilarious. So I highly recommend it to anybody. But this week, as you guys know, I've been kind of binge watching Supernatural. So I binge watched the entire 4th season this week. And I've been loving it. I know you guys said that it gets a little weird that you guys didn't enjoy it as much when the Angels came in.
Well, the first season I didn't mind. It was towards the end I just kind of lost interest at the end.
No, I like it.
It's still going. It hasn't.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yet.
Like towards the end of my end of it.
Okay,
I only watched episode 5 and I liked it.
Okay, I'm on the 4th season right now, and I'm still in the fuck yeah zone.
You can only escape from hell so many times for me to follow.
Oh god, they go back.
Like one time I give you that pass.
See, that's what pissed me off about Buffy. I mean, she just kept dying and coming back, and after it happened so many times, I'm like, okay, she's invincible. Show's over. So.
I will ask this: is Jim Beaver still dead? Like I watched up to a point where
him and
he did stay dead,
and the dad, like the only two characters on the show.
Yeah, and that dad was a good actor. He died in the first episode.
He died because the actor's good and has other stuff.
He got Watchmen or something back then, bro.
Yes, I've been enjoying that.
No,
and then
it dips. I want to say season 7 or something.
Okay.
It's pretty late that it dipped.
But this season's actually been really good again. So
okay,
I may have to 10
going.
9.
It's 9 now.
9.
I have a bad, again, this is kind of my OCD tendency, but once I start a show, I can't stop. No matter how bad it gets, I have to see it through the end. Like Entourage, even when they were in the shittiest of shit, it got so horrible, I still had to watch.
You mean basically after the first season.
Exactly. And I still had to keep going.
You have to watch for Sasha Grey. That's why you stayed in there.
She was only in 2 episodes.
That was enough.
She was in like 3 maybe.
Sophie Monk was in the episode too.
But yeah, so I'm going to have to keep going through the end with this one. But yeah, so I've been enjoying that. And then my guilty pleasure of this week, I mentioned it briefly last week that I'd watched +1, but we'd gone for so long that we were trying to get out really quickly. But then I got in an argument with Ryan Turek about it twice, once at trivia, and then we discussed it again today. And I think it's a really strong film.
What is +1? I don't even know what that is.
+1, it's a really simple concept.
Thing, right?
Yeah, it's a doppelganger thing.
This is a new movie?
It is. It was just put out by IFC.
It's not on 16,
I'm surprised you didn't win it at trivia because we had like 50 copies.
I won it. I won it.
So you can borrow Dave Parker's copy.
Oh, we did.
But it's a simple concept of this crew shows up for a party. They're like college kids. They've come back to their hometown for the summer. They show up to a party and they go outside to this separate kind of bar area. And while they're outside, doubles of themselves show up and begin the party again.
You got all that from just 20 minutes of it?
I watched the whole thing.
Oh, I thought you only watched 20 minutes of every movie.
What? Oh my God.
Well, how come he doesn't get
I don't
shadows
even
in
know
the
what
face?
that comes from.
I don't know. I hit high tap, but nothing happened.
I don't even know what that's in reference to.
It happened one time.
No,
on the
it's
show.
one
Go back to
movie.
episode 11.
Okay.
I can't remember what it was.
I know what it was because I still have not seen all of your next.
Oh.
I kept getting studio clips.
Really?
Simon Barrett.
That was it. I still
Hold
have
the
not watched
phone.
all of your next. But that's what it was in
Which part did
reference
you
to.
see? I'm curious.
I don't even remember.
When they send someone 20 minutes, is it the first 20 minutes? I would hope so.
No, they send
just
us-
pick a sorted
20
sequence.
minutes.
With press-wise,
Yeah.
they'll send us large clips. It's like, here's a 10-minute thing. But like at the press junket, they showed at least 20 minutes, I think. And yeah, so I mean, that's...
I remember
I've
that
seen-
Dracula was an intercut kind of.
It's usually key scenes that kind of give the basic overall gist.
That's
Exactly.
fucking horrible and should not
Yeah.
happen.
I've only had that
Shouldn't be
once,
allowed.
and it wasn't even horror. It was Die Hard 4.
Are you kidding? I
They
had...
showed us like the big the scene where he meets Justin Long and then like shoots like a freaking fire extinguisher to knock a guy out a window. And I'm like, this is awful. What's happening? I'm like, well, maybe the rest of the movie would be better. Nope, that's the best part.
That's the whole thing. No, usually if they do that, it's like they snag kind of the best scenes and edit them together in like a 20-minute kind of sizzle reel.
Do you know what they used to
show
do?
you.
I mean, sorry to interrupt, but you know what they used to do with VHS, and you might remember this. Video stores, they would send like a condensed 10-minute version
To
of the
sell to
entire
the
movie.
store.
I have the body bags condensed.
I had the
Oh, really?
Chainsaw 2 consent.
because my
Wow.
body bags, the body bags condensed I have, it has a booklet attached to the back of it that tells you how to set up an end cap and merchandise it and everything. It's beautiful.
That's nice.
Side story about VHS, just because you reminded me. So when I worked in a video store, you'd get advanced promos that, of course, say at the bottom like, "Oh, you're watching an advanced promo," whatever. The one that pissed me off more than anything ever, and I still have it somewhere in New York, Blair Witch Project, the original, and we're going to get into that later because of the debates and all. But it was the only video preview tape I got where, when it got to the end, when she goes down in the house, it ended and said, "See the end when it comes out on video."
God.
And you're like, you got to be kidding me! Unbelievable! It's the only one.
Yeah, the Freddy vs. Jason, the screen, like advanced screenings of that were missing the last 5 minutes. So it was like, see who wins when the movie comes
Really?
out.
Wow.
Didn't
Probably
you,
hadn't decided.
Because neither one of them win.
Yeah, exactly.
did you guys
Jason
ever?
one. What are you talking about?
Did you ever go to the website after Devil's Inside? Remember when Devil's Inside came in?
never-
What was
There's no
there?
Oh, I did.
It was just
It was just promotion.
clips and shit.
Yeah, it was
Okay, because they made it
promotion
sound
of the
like the story
If you don't
continued.
like that movie, fine, but like everybody just harped on this weird thing that like they thought the end of the movie was online.
Yeah, I never
And it
thought.
wasn't.
Yeah, I
I'm
know.
like, no, it just ended like every other fucking found footage movie.
Right.
They all die and the camera gets knocked over.
Right.
Yeah, I never
But then they-
understood why
but they
people
try
to like
anticipated.
make it sound like it didn't end
No,
that
I
way.
didn't think so at all.
Yeah.
I thought they
Yeah,
brought up a
exactly.
title
It was
card
poorly
saying,
worded.
Because yeah,
Please
otherwise
go
you
look at the
just get
website.
footage, somebody found the footage, or their bodies are never found, or whatever. Instead, they were like, "Here's the URL."
I thought
It
that
was
the
same
URL,
shit.
I thought it was presented as like a social cause, like, for more information on exorcisms near you, go here.
it did actually, no, it did feel a little bit like that.
Yeah.
I didn't like that film.
No, I don't
Are we
think
going to debate that one? Can we start?
Anybody?
Anyone?
Well,
All right.
I thought it was fine for any generic.
It wasn't
found
even the
footage.
worst found footage movie that year. So that's
No,
all.
it wasn't.
No.
That's true.
But there's such a plethora of them.
But it made the most money it was the worst per how much money it made.
Yeah.
I gotta say that Nun had me there on. I mean, and they didn't do a press screening of it, but that Nun
It's the
had me there on
blind
opening
nun
day.
thing.
But she's in one shot.
It didn't matter.
She walks past camera.
The image is enough to like get you
Beautiful
in.
marketing campaign.
I actually missed that part.
Yeah, exactly.
I've never
Were you
seen
sleeping?
It was a blink and you missed a
Believe it or
moment.
not.
No, the mother was good. The performance of that, whoever that, she was good. But let's just not go there.
Becca, did you have anything else? I had two things I wanted to bring up.
So yeah, +1. If you haven't seen it, apparently it's there's a dichotomy forming about it, but I enjoyed it, so I highly recommend checking it out.
I'm looking forward to it because it's the director of the remake, The Last House on the Left.
Right.
Yep.
Oh, I thought that was really good.
And I thought that was really good, and it stars the main like psycho kid from The Purge.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, and I thought he was really good in The Purge. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to it.
I mean, the movie definitely had some flaws to it that, made it indie. But at the same time, I thought that for a doppelganger film, which I've seen done hundreds of times, I thought it went to some really
I
interesting
refuse
places.
to watch movies with flaws.
I think, do these guys need to say their name every time they talk? I'm Mike Williamson. I refuse to.
But the other thing that I've been
They'll
catching
get more
up
concise.
on, I am in the process of doing a Satanism project that I'm working on for a couple of different things.
What do you need?
Satanism. Do we have a Hail
Just do
Satan?
the baby.
Hail
It's just a baby
Hail
sacrifice.
Satan. But I've been going back.
Yeah.
I've been going back and watching all these Satan movies that I missed from way back when, and I found this one from 1997 that I now really like called Black Circle Boys.
Black Circle.
Oh, Eric Mavis.
Yes, and so it's kind of campy. Okay, it's really campy. Kind of campy. It's really campy, but for some reason, it kept me riveted the entire way through where I was like, what's going on? So do not
All
watch
20
it.
minutes.
Elric, I swear to God, don't make me throw a fucking cheese puff at you, man.
Yeah, that's not what the debates are
It's not
about.
good.
What was that Satanist movie that was actually like it's never been released and it was based on that true story? Like Jim Van Bebber did it as the story of like Ricky.
Uh-huh.
Not the story of Ricky.
Yeah, that's not Jim Van
No,
Bebber.
that's not Jim Van Bebber.
Okay,
But
I don't know if
but-
this is the same thing, but there's a book that came out in the 80s called like I Killed My Parents for Satan or something like that, and I know that they made a movie version of it that's never been released, and it was supposed to be like a true
and
like
there's
autobiographical.
like real actor like actors working today that are in it, but it just never got released. I was always curious.
I have the
Cinema
novel
Last
if you feel
House
like
on
checking
Dead
it
End
out. It's pretty cool. Not that he
Last
killed his
House on
parents,
Dead End
but
Street?
just
Is that
The novel's a good
the
read.
novel.
Never seen that.
Last House on Dead End Streets.
The one that involves all that crazy, weird Satanism at the end.
Yeah, but that's not a real. No,
No,
Last
it's
House
not
on
real,
Dead
but he
is
was
an
meant to have
old
kind of
cult
gone
movie.
deranged, right?
Oh,
During
that guy, yeah.
Yeah, the
That
director of it. Yeah, he ended up
yeah.
a little out of it, yeah.
Can
It's
you
an
still
interesting
do
film.
Satanist movies today? Well, I guess Devil's Due is, but that's more witch. Like, I always question if you can do like real Satanists
Well,
today.
the fucking Paranormal movie is a Satan movie.
Is it?
Probably.
Sure, they
It
got
looks like that's
pentagrams
where it's
and
going. Yeah, it
several
looks like
heads.
that's what they're.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Is The Last Exorcism Satanist movies? I mean, it's considered.
If there's a pentagram, Satan's involved.
See, I think much
Period.
more of like the
Yeah.
satanic panic of the 80s where like, you've got like long-haired kids with black leather jackets who are coming to kill your dog.
Paranormal
and-
Activity has long-haired kids
They're
with
doing
leather
that
jackets
because they
coming to
listen
kill
Judas
you.
Priest, who are Satan worshippers.
Oh, okay.
Obviously.
Well, Slayer isn't scary anymore, so that was my question.
Well, yeah.
Hey.
Well, as long as we don't talk
He's
about
still
any other
hardcore.
Joe Berlinger films today, I'll be okay.
Oh, it's
Let's
coming.
leave it at
It's
Paradise
coming.
Lost. That's it. Let's leave it at that.
It's
Can't talk
coming.
some kind of monster.
Yeah, I'll talk some kind of.
Don't unleash the Kane monster, RoboCop 2.
Okay, guys, where
I like
were
that.
we?
That's
That was a trivia.
Anything
reference.
else on your end?
No, I'm good.
Okay. I'm just trying to keep things
No,
going.
I've
That's all.
had whiskey at this point, so
Sweet. Rebecca's actually drinking. This
I
could be the
will,
first show
and
she's
I will
drinking.
talk forever unless
All
you
right,
kids
quickly.
cut me off.
Over to Rob. Let's get to the debates.
Wait. I had stuff I wanted to
Rob
kick
stuff.
in. You guys want to
Let
skim
the
over
poor
me.
kid say what he wants.
All
Those are
right.
shameless plugs.
Everyone quiet. Dead silence.
I'm gonna dead silence, please. I'm gonna make it quick, actually, and it involves everybody because it's all right. Three things.
Elric almost spilled his beer again. Right now.
But I did go see something else because we went today.
I'm gonna bring that up.
Rob can just leave. 6 is too many.
Elric hit like 5 of them. I had to turn them all off. Stop.
Dead science. Dead science.
Listen, you can't have anything nice anymore. I'm taking it to the
I forgot that we all went to a really
No.
good screening.
I know, and I was going to bring that up, but since you cut me off, I'll do it. Now then. Brian Collins hosted a screening of Exorcist III at the New Beverly, which most of us in the room, Rebecca, Dave Parker was there, which was...
Yeah,
We were
Mike
busy.
was
We were
not. I
hosting.
just wanted to point
I'd
that
seen
out.
it at the New
Williamson
Beverly.
was not.
As a true fan, I
wasn't there
saw
for
it
a
at the New
reason.
Beverly like 6 years ago, so
I
I
see.
didn't
As a
have to
true
wait
fan.
for.
Oh, wait, as a true fan, I saw opening night when it came out.
As a true fan, I just saw it for the first time like 3 years ago on DVD.
Hey guys, it's in my book.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming.
So yeah, we've talked about Exorcist III on the show before, and obviously we all love it. But you know what? I hadn't seen it in a couple of years, and it was cool. First of all, there's a couple of great. I remember it being kind of, I don't want to say long, but I forgot how humorous it was.
Yeah, it's definitely funnier than I remember.
I thought it was really funny. I thought it played great with the crowd. Everyone was laughing and having a good time. You had Brad Dourif come out, which was kind of neat.
Yep.
Until the crowd bum rushed him.
Oh my God.
So wait,
How
don't
much of
paint the crowd.
did this?
Don't paint the crowd.
Not the whole crowd.
Select few.
Select few.
There was
That's
like
true.
8 people with like 2 towers and Deadwood
Because it wasn't
paraphernalia.
like fans that were like just nervous. It was literally those autograph assholes.
Yeah.
Deadwood fans? Really?
And Voyager
Deadwood is
shit.
not what I
They
think of as having fans. You like
they
that?
can sell.
They can just sell it.
so-
Okay.
They were having Chucky calendars
Yeah,
signed.
they were literally just like forcing shit in his face, not even like, hey, can you sign this? It was just like, rah!
And they were actually outside before the
chasing
screening
down the
crying.
street. Yeah.
And the New Beverly told them they had to buy tickets if they wanted, to try to get something signed or whatever. But yeah, it
It's
was,
about that too.
yeah. But
And is that because he's a rare find because he doesn't do conventions?
I guess. I mean,
I guess,
don't
and
pay
he's-
attention to who
How did you get in
doesn't.
touch with him? Just
Through
His agent?
Don Mancini, actually.
Okay.
So
Oh, wow.
I knew he'd know how to get in touch with him.
Nice.
nice guy.
So yeah, I mean, I find that going through people that you know,
Yeah.
friends and whatever, like personal, like mutual acquaintances, way better than any, because an agent will turn you down.
No, that's how we got you guys on the show today.
Yeah, yeah.
Went through friends. I'm not going to try to go through Mike to get you. That's crazy.
But yeah, no, we had a really good turnout, which is always nice, and it played well, even though it's it is kind of long movie. I think it's just under 2 hours. And by
But it's just
it was like
good.
1 o'clock
Yeah.
by the time we started because of the Q&A and everything.
Yeah.
So
I told you, Elric. I told you could have.
Yeah, no, I probably couldn't have handled it now.
Yeah.
And I was
Broken.
also surprised because I immediately saw after some people arguing online like, oh, that movie is just Exorcist in name only or whatever. And I'm like,
What?
you know what? It's pretty darn, it's a sequel to the original.
Oh, yeah.
Like even more so than I remember how much it references things that happened in the first one. So
Well, there's nice. There's those little subtle nods
yeah.
that are from the original into this one.
But wasn't it written to not be a sequel?
Well,
The book.
the book
Right,
was.
right. So the film was adapted to be a sequel from the start?
No,
because it always had Kinderman, right? So
it
I think
always had Kinderman, so it was
It
always
was
a
always the
sequel.
same like universe, but it wasn't exactly Exorcist. It was Legion. It wasn't.
Yeah, it was
Exorcist
Legion, yeah.
III. Like, the way that
I do know that the Exorcist scene was kind of put in afterwards because the studio decided that they had to have an Exorcist scene to make it Exorcism 3. So they had to put in that scene, the exorcism scene, to make the studio happy.
Which
so
is
it's
the
very
only thing that feels a little out of place.
Yeah, it's completely out of place.
Somebody we've never seen before.
Yeah,
in the
who the fuck
movie.
is that? He just shows up?
Well, he just
he-
goes through the door.
He is Merlin from Excalibur.
Oh, well,
who
now
that
it makes
guy is.
sense.
They reshot the ending.
He
They
just
couldn't,
knew.
add another scene where that character's actually part of the movie at any point.
There
beforehand.
was a scene early on that I never noticed before where they mention him and he's like sitting in a room by himself, but he never interacts with anyone else in the
Yeah,
movie.
and then he just shows up and tries to exorcise the guy and gets his guts ripped
But
out.
what I thought was really interesting that I didn't know that Brad Dourif told us was that Jason Miller was an add-on as well.
Yeah.
And I thought, I was like, that I didn't know. I figured that was always part of it. And then he said, no, they forced him to put Jason Miller in. I was
Yeah.
like, oh,
I
that's
think
cool.
they even reshot
They did.
Dorif as Kara's falling out the window and going down the stairs, and then they just didn't use it.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Well, there is footage of somebody that's not Miller. I don't think it's Dorif either. I think that's yet another reshoot.
Wow.
But I guess he did that too, just so it would kind of have that.
It's amazing with as much tampering and everything else how well that movie still really works.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that I knew about the reshoots and stuff, but Brad Dourif said that he shot the whole movie, then they replaced him with Jason Miller.
Yeah.
And then that didn't work, so they brought him back and he redid almost all his parts
And
again.
then they kind of cut it back and forth.
And then you look at the trailer, the original trailer, then you see all the special
morphing face
effects
thing,
stuff that
Yeah.
isn't in the movie either.
Yeah, and this was, who was that? Morgan Creek?
Yeah.
Who did that? So much like Nightbreed,
Morgan
that
Creek
footage is
tweaking
lost.
with something. Wow.
There's another William Peter Blatty. I was just looking up because I couldn't remember the name. Jason Miller collaboration, Ninth Configuration. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
It's a
was
really
talking about that on
fascinating
Saturday.
film. Like
Stacey Keach is in
Stacey
it.
Keach is one of his great performances.
Yeah, it's a
and
great film.
I think I had a feeling it was written for the stage at one point. Twinkle Twinkle Killer Kane. It was called.
Twinkle Killer Kane came out as a novel.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure somebody did it on stage because it has that feeling, but it's very surreal, very strange. It's about a guy who basically is running a mental asylum, right? And it is a really if you guys like the weirder kind of, I wouldn't call it a straight horror film, but I think it's got Scott Wilson from Walking Dead.
Yeah, it's a weird, which
who's also
is an Exorcist 3.
Yeah,
so
you obviously
it's a weird.
Exorcist IV was actually written to be for the stage. They couldn't get the hyenas to work.
Rennie Harlan was really disappointed by that.
So was Paul Schrader.
Supposed to be the Spider-Man turn off.
They're both sad. Paul Schrader was more disappointed.
From the ceiling.
I don't think Paul Schrader had hyenas in his.
Oh yeah,
No, definitely not.
Harlan's is better than Schrader's.
I agree.
Yeah, well.
Hey, we're just bridging.
Yes,
We're
almost
bridging
there.
into the
Conversation.
debates. I'd have to go back and watch them both again.
They're both
they're both bad.
They're both equally fucked
They're
up.
both
I wouldn't say
boring.
either of them are
Three's the only
bad.
good
They're
sequel.
boring.
I don't
Schrader's is
remember
boring,
hating
but-
either.
Yeah, I mean,
I found them both dull.
What's
Yeah.
amazing
And I
is
love Skarsgård.
Close storyline.
They're almost
They
identical.
really are.
Yeah, they were really close.
But different actors that they
And more
they
effects.
shot
Except for
most of.
Stellan's.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Who was
that's
older
right.
than Saito, even though he was playing the young girl.
Yeah, that's crazy.
No, that Max von Sydow now looks
Yeah.
like he did in The Exorcist.
Yeah. Really quick, since we mentioned Brad Dourif, one thing I've been meaning to talk about for weeks is the Child's Play box set, which I picked up on Blu-ray. And I always loved the first one, and I always loved Bride of Chucky, and I have fond memories of the series, but I don't remember it that well. I've been watching them all since December, and they're all pretty darn good. In terms of, here we go. This could start it.
There is one that's not.
Yeah.
You don't like 3, right?
No, I like 3.
I didn't like
Seed. Seed.
You guys know I
I
didn't
like
like the
Seed.
new one.
I still
like
haven't
the new
seen
one,
I
the
did
new
not like the new
Come
one.
of Chucky.
I'm not
It really
done.
was.
I
New
liked
one's all right, but it's better than
for the
Seed,
first half.
that's for sure. Yeah, Seed's the worst one. But no, the thing that I was thinking about was, in particular, 1, 2, and 3 are consistently pretty good movies.
Yeah.
What?
2 and 3 are not good movies.
Oh, they're totally good. They're
Okay,
just as good as Rob Galluzzo. Come on.
It's the best
Ride Rex?
series.
Yeah, maybe.
Who directed 3?
3 was Jack. What's Jack?
Yeah, that one I'm not prepared for.
Jack Bender.
Okay, who did 2?
2 is
John Lavia.
Yeah.
And did Tom ever have a chance? I know him and Don didn't. Yeah, okay.
No, it's
After
not
the
him and
first one,
Don. It's
no.
him and the producer.
So he was gone after one, no matter
Yeah,
what, even if he
no matter
wanted
what.
to. That's a shame.
Yeah.
He did a good job on the first
But
one.
yeah, good series. And the other thing I watched, and I know Mike is a defender of, and
Yeah, bring it.
this I think is going to break it all open.
Amityville.
Dracula 3D and 3D.
I liked it.
Argento's.
I liked it. You know what?
I didn't totally hate it.
There's an endorsement.
Brian was fine with it too. You were fine with it. Yeah.
I don't mind the taste. I mean, no, that one.
No, all I have to say is, look, the bar was extremely low because everyone was saying how awful it was, and I watched it in 3D. The 3D itself is pretty darn good. It's got a lot of depth, especially in the forest things. The problem is, it's fucking boring.
That's
it's
the
a
biggest
really
thing.
long, boring movie.
You know,
Now, did
that's
you
the
find
definition
it-
of a bad movie. If a movie's fucking
Defend that
boring,
then.
it's a bad
Isn't that
movie.
The crime?
It is, exactly. That is the only crime in cinema is to be fucking boring.
No, yeah,
there
that's
are
the
films
crime.
that are slow are still not boring sometimes.
then again,
boring
it's
is
not
Boring beginning to end, though. I mean,
That's
it's
the thing.
not.
There's
But the parts that weren't
As
were
Mantis?
silly.
yeah.
Naked Asian.
The problem is
Big
that
ass deadly mantis.
Yeah, that was
What
good.
Dario Argento movie have you seen that does not have silly elements to it?
Okay, good point.
that's
But-
true. The problem, besides it being boring,
Yeah.
is that there's flourishes and there's good
Tenebrae's
set
close.
pieces like kills and stuff
Close.
like that are all completely ruined by an unfinished CG shot.
Well,
Yeah.
that's
John
but
Stack. That's just
here's the thing I
John
will say.
Stack
No,
felt
it's
that.
not inexcusable.
Yes, it is.
And here's what I'll say, because when you say it's inexcusable in a moderate to low budget movie to have incomplete effects work, and then we're going to sit here and debate B fucking horror movies that have incomplete effects work to the nth degree, you can't judge a movie on its production value when it doesn't have the benefit of production value.
Dario Defender. 1 point to the Dario Defender.
Here's what I will say.
Italy.
Here's what I will say about Dracula 3D. I really appreciated that it was to 2004. It wasn't as good as Hammer movies, okay? but it was trying to do.
That's what it was trying.
But not only was it was trying to do to Hammer movies what Hammer movies did to Universal Pictures, and it was amping them up. So it took Hammer movies as a template, and then it amped up nudity, violence, absurdities, and
still was boring.
Yeah, it never made it past the camera boring.
I wasn't bored. I can appreciate a slow burn. I know some of you guys may be ADD or something, but
I like slow burn movies, but
I'm not going to defend it as a great movie. But it really pisses me off also when people hold it up against Suspiria or something like that. Because Homeboy is in his 70s.
No, and
our grandparents are sitting around watching soap operas. This dude is directing 3D Dracula movies. Fuck you if you're going to say
with his
it's
daughter
not as good
naked
as
in
he was
3D
when he was in his 30s. You can't walk as good as you did
My
in your
daughter
30s.
well, does
naked
that
in
mean that we
3D.
should give him a pass? I mean, does he get a handicap because he's directing at 70?
I will say this. Mike has convinced me because I hope when I'm in my 70s, I'm making some shitty 3D Dracula.
How was the Ward?
How
was the Ward? Did you like the
Don't
Ward?
put a mantis in them, honey.
The Ward?
Yeah, did you like The Ward by John Carpenter? Does he get a pass for that film that was
Overgo some artists.
There's an editor I worked with.
But it's still not a pass. You have to still make good movies.
I worked with said something.
No, I agree. But the thing is, if you're
70.
And you know what? John Carpenter doesn't get as much of a pass because he's not in his 70s.
Yeah.
Scorsese's in his almost 70 years old. You know what I mean? There's a lot of directors who are old.
Someone said something that I totally believe to me one time. He says, you judge an artist by their best work. And I really believe that.
I agree, yeah.
Because everyone can have a bad day.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you're a bad person. But when you consistently have delivered, even if it's one movie, hey, that's one great movie.
Let me ask you this,
most
though.
of the world will not make.
Let's get serious again for a second, if we can. It doesn't make you a bad person if you film your daughter naked in the third dimension.
oh my god.
Okay, see, that's where it creeps me out.
Because I approve. I'm
talked
just
about
saying.
this last week on the show.
This is Europe.
But still, think of him directing his daughter.
Yes.
Yes, grab my daughter's boobs. Yes, jiggle them around a little harder.
Yes.
I mean,
you
it's
know
so
what?
creepy.
She's done. Yeah,
At
but
least
the thing
she's
is,
of age.
she's an active participant. She's done it enough in enough films and been nude in enough of Dad's films.
Yeah.
That's
You know
all
what I'm going to say?
Yeah.
You know what I'm going to say?
Clearly, she's
drink to
fucked
Dario.
up
This is
too.
nothing compared to Daddy's personal films.
Clearly, she's
The
fucked
private
up
film.
It is really weird, and I watched it with Mike Mendez, and it was great. There's a scene where she's like naked getting bathed by somebody.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the scene I saw. I like that
It's an
scene.
insect bite.
And he broke into a Dario Argento accent like, oh yes, let me masturbate behind the camera while this goes on. It's like, oh man. And also,
Don't
I
call
noticed,
Mike out like that.
no, it was a joke. And I thought it was interesting. The other girl in it, I think her name is Marta Gastina. She's super young. She's like 24 and looks exactly like Ozia.
I couldn't tell the two of them
Yeah,
apart.
there
in
were
some
scenes where I was like, is that her? No, it's not. It's
the scene
other
where they're
girl.
in the cellar and one of them's coming back to life, I was like, I don't know who's dead.
The guy who plays Dracula also plays Van Helsing on the TV version of Dracula,
right, yeah.
which is actually pretty, like, for TV, is pretty good. For normal TV, I saw the final episode and it was the best of, one of the better horror things I've seen on TV. Bloody as hell.
One of my worst...
And all I got was a burp from
And
Colin.
there's Collins. But one of the things that absolutely killed me in Dracula 3D was Rutger Hauer, who was like chewing the scenery the entire time.
I'm going to come to Mike's defense now. Rutger Hauer's never chewing the scenery. I haven't even seen this movie. Rutger Hauer's the finest actor, thespian. Sometimes it's just tears in the rain, my friend.
Split second, baby.
Yeah, split second, blind.
I'm not
Blind
saying
fucking
he has not
ninja.
done some genius stuff. I'm just saying
He is a
he was
genius.
severely out of place in this.
That's funny you say that because I actually didn't think he chewed scene. I actually thought he was a little bit phoning it
Restrained.
in. So I thought I'm surprised to hear
I actually
you think
forgot he was in it until like an hour and 15
There was
minutes, and then he
something-
shows up.
There was
Is that Rutger?
something awkward
Rutger?
going on in
Yeah.
his scenes, especially the one monologue where he's like describing his history with Dracula, and it's very slow and it was just very methodical, and he kept sucking on his
Did you see
teeth.
it, Dave?
All the actors are being blinded by the
No,
actual
that's why
light.
I'm not being critical on this movie. The
I
only
saw 20
thing
minutes.
it's like I have not seen the movie yet, so I will agree with you. If I'm 72,
I don't care what you're doing. If
I
you're making
hope I'm directing my daughter in
nude.
a nude scene in
I hope
3D.
so too.
It's incredible. I'm sorry.
We
It's
all hope
incredible.
so.
As always, guys, you can follow us on Facebook. Thanks for listening. It's been a great show. Tonight, we brought you the debate about Dracula 3D, and that was it. That's all we had time for. We only have 30 other titles to discuss.
Oh my god! All right, well,
We've got plenty of beer though. This is
Point
gonna be
being,
okay.
it's not his worst. I think Phantom of the
my.
Opera is.
You know what? I haven't even seen that.
I have not seen that one. You want to watch? Let's watch that one together. I haven't seen that one either. It's Julian Sands.
Family Opera.
Julian Sands is a very interesting actor.
That's like
very interested by Julian Sands.
That's worse than Card Player. And,
I like Card Player.
And Sleepless.
Card Player is shot really well.
Yeah.
And
I was kind of riveted by Card Player.
the Hitchcock one.
Do you like Hitchcock?
But that was for TV. That was made for TV, so it was a little different.
Yeah.
It looked a little different.
Doesn't
It looked more for TV. It didn't look like
get a pass for that.
No, it doesn't deserve a pass.
But you have to hold it to TV standards.
I was just asking.
You can't.
Yeah. What? Okay. Before we move on, before we move on, worst Argento film. Go around the table. Which one? Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah, Phantom of the Opera.
Without having seen that, I can't say that one.
No, you can.
Do you like Hitchcock? I was really bored.
It's pretty boring.
Card Player.
I'd probably say the Card Player too.
I'd
say the Card Player.
I do have to say-
Watching them play poker on a video.
And it was video
What is the
poker
Max
with
von
bad
Sydow one?
graphics, but-
Sleepless.
That's Sleepless.
Sleepless has some stuff.
It has some slasher moments on a train that were cool.
It's got a few things.
Great, yeah.
See, I didn't mind the Card Player. I wouldn't call it horror, though. It was like a slightly edgier version of Law and Order.
Yeah.
And if you watch it with kind of that in mind, it's not that bad.
Okay, wait. Let me rephrase. Last great Argento film. Is it Opera?
Yeah.
Now that's the changing
I
point,
think
right?
so. I
That's
think
where
so.
it all.
Yeah,
It
Opera's
kind of
incredible.
declined.
Because I think Stendel's really interesting, but it's not a great film. But it's interesting. It has interesting
Opera is
sequences.
Interesting stuff since Opera. Yeah,
Yeah, Trauma has some interesting scenes too. Brad Dourif.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ask him about that?
No, I did not. I keep shit on topic.
Yeah.
All right, so how are we going to do this? This is pure anarchy. I have a list.
We're going to be. I nominate. We start.
Wait.
Yes.
Can we do shameless plugs first?
Oh yes. We have to talk about something.
Shameless plug.
Why don't I'll set you up.
Thank you.
There's a movie we talked about here a little while ago called Coldwater, which is we actually talked about when Dave was here last. But we also have been talking about. We had a screening of
We talked about
it.
it a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, we had
I
a-
said that I liked it.
Yeah, there's this thing happening called the New Hope Film
Yay.
Festival. Woo! And it's 21 films in 21 days online, and you pay very
$3 per movie,
$3
or $15
or 15, and you
for the
watch
whole
21
pass.
films for 3
No, wait a
weeks.
second. 21 films in 21 days. Does it go offline after that one day?
Each film is one day, and
get
only
that
one
one
film.
day to watch
Very
it.
special.
Yeah.
I don't know what. And the thing is, we don't know what day yet.
Yeah, but the only other horror film I believe is The Battery. It's You and The Battery, and maybe
Good choices.
maybe one other thing that we chose. But there's some interesting stuff. But Coldwater is, I think it'll probably be early in the fest, but we'll look up the site.
Yeah.
That's
As
your
soon as
vote.
we have the date, we'll post it on our Facebook
Yeah.
page.
But yeah,
and
if you're
tweet it.
interested in checking out Coldwater, it's nuhofilmfest.com. That's NUHO filmfest.com. They'll have all the information of when the screenings are, when you can stream it online. Check it out.
And I actually think your film will play well online.
I think it will too.
I think there's something about the aesthetic of it and having a single protagonist that actually works
On a
towards
personal
watching
level.
it. Yeah, exactly. As a
Why don't you tell us
one-on-one
a little about
screen.
Coldwater, Dave. Give us a log line to these listeners that don't know.
I'll tell
what
them.
it is.
It's about the guy from a Greg Araki film coming in halfway through and having this great sequence. That's the midpoint. I totally forgot his name. James
Duval.
who's great.
Yeah.
No, that's not even anything. Wait till I finish the next beer. You pitch the story.
Coldwater is about someone who is asked to house sit a house and basically finding out that, something or someone is there in the house with him watching. So it unfolds as a psychological mystery. It's a mindfuck movie.
Mm-hmm.
So
With lots of easy spoilers that would ruin it.
yeah, it's we tried to do as many twists and turns as we could. And yeah, I'm not selling
The guy
it.
from Greg Araki may or may not come in the middle of it. I can't tell you. That would be a spoiler.
The guy looked really good. I thought the ending looked really good.
But the Nazis, I mean,
Yeah.
you did a lot with them.
There's Nazis? I'm in.
The Nazis.
It's No 3 Coldwater.
And the
naked
nuns.
nuns.
I liked the nuns.
Oh, nuns, I'm out.
Yeah.
Now, the less you know, the better.
Yeah.
Because I like that, and I don't think this is a spoiler, but I like that it keeps changing in terms of like, is this a haunted house movie? Is this a home invasion? Like, it keeps playing with what you think it is, and then I think the last 20 or so minutes is really solid when it all kind of unfolds and you find out exactly what it is.
That's after the Greg
So-
Araki scene, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll
As I
post-
like to call it.
we'll post on Facebook once it's
He's gonna kill me
live,
after the show.
and the same we'll tweet about it as well. So there's that.
That's how we dragged him here, by saying we could do that, and Now he's just going to have to defend something.
Now he's leaving.
Now I can just
He's
defend.
taking his whiskey
Now I
with
can
him,
just
too.
defend the rest of my career.
Yeah. All right.
That might be a good place to start. And
Yeah.
I know you're not going to talk about this. Dave told me all the stories, and I think it's amazing. Dave, for better or worse, wrote House of the Dead.
Wait, I'm credited as one
Wait,
of the writers.
you wrote that? I'm sorry for anything I said.
I'm credited as one of the writers.
He's credited as one of the writers. But
you didn't know that?
Think about it.
I knew you didn't know that. I was like, oh shit, Becca said
She has no idea.
I'm sorry, Dave.
The story about how it all came out, and plus, this is Ubol's first movie. Who knew?
The
No,
table.
that's
That's
Is it
first.
Uwe? Is that how we pronounce it?
Write this down.
Uwe.
Uwe.
I'm watching thinking.
Yeah.
But it was before we knew
Well, let's
who he
just say
was.
definitively the debates start
Now.
Well, I have to say, I'll kick him off.
House
Dick
of the
Gruner
Dead.
just texted me a picture of phantoms on his TV screen, and it says, "You've got to be fucking kidding me."
We're not starting with Phantoms. We have to start with
I
House of the
know.
Dead.
House of the Dead.
All right, well,
because Mike Williamson is defending it, and the writer is here to defy him.
And I think I said something bad about it on email, not knowing that Dave
Hold on, and
wrote
U-Ball's
it.
come. Hold on, the door open. U-Ball, come in, sit down.
All right, so I've seen the movie once. I saw it in the theater when it came out. And I remember,
Oh, that's you?
Yeah, I saw it in the theater, and I remember seeing Dave at some event afterwards or something, and not related to the movie. I don't think he would have attended, but I knew that he was displeased with it. And I have to say that I had a really fun time with it, and I'll explain to the extent I can, having not seen it in like a decade or whatever.
But what happened when you told him that?
He was really mad at me. He was mad that I enjoyed
I
it.
think the words were, "You're a fucking idiot."
That's probably right. Yeah. So here's what I expected to not like the movie going in. I mean, I'm not a video game fan. It seemed like a really crass sort of.
It's not really based off the video game,
Isn't it?
Much.
Well, it's supposed to
It's
be.
supposed to be.
It looked like it.
It's,
Did look like a video game. He succeeded in that.
I really liked the video game.
Well, you should like the parts of the video game that are in the movie.
Yeah, I didn't play it as much as I played part
Yeah, that's
2,
right.
but
it looked like it was just crass commercialism, and it probably was. But here was the thing: watching it, it was so exuberant that I felt like was that his first? That wasn't his first movie, was it?
you
It was his first
exuberant.
movie.
It was his
first video game movie.
It was the first video game movie.
Yeah.
He had directed like I think 2
There was
before.
a childlike glee throughout every fucking frame in that
Okay.
movie, to where even though
I call it
was,
a cluelessness.
well, maybe so, but he was still really happy being clueless. You could tell, like for instance, there's the bullet time stuff.
Oh, you know how dangerous that stuff was because it wasn't real bullet time. They put those guys on some sort of platform that spun around really
But
fast.
here's
Are you serious?
Yeah, it was insane when they told me what they did.
That's kind of ingenious, though.
But see,
Really.
there's a million movies after The Matrix that aped bullet time, but for some reason, that one, it didn't feel like it was trying. It didn't feel like it was trying to be hip. It felt like he saw it, really liked it a lot, and was excited to do it in his movie. So the whole movie felt like just bonkers with excitement. We're making a movie. We're making a movie. We're making a movie. Is how I felt the whole time through the movie. And it as opposed to being this crass, cynical thing that I thought it was going to be, it was this
Like Alone in the Dark or whatever. Was that his other?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Like,
that
that
is stuff
seems-
very cynical.
that
compared.
feels
That cynical.
but
That was
House
like
of the
Christian
Dead-
Slater doing acrobats, right? Yeah.
House of the
You
Dead,
bold
however,
doing
felt,
acrobat.
for better or worse, like an Ed Wood style movie where they're
that I can see.
he's really excited about making this movie. It's full of energy, and if the pieces aren't in place for it to be intellectually stimulating or anything like that,
It did have Jurgen Krishnow recreating his role from U-571. I'm pretty sure he was
instead-
playing the same captain,
It's instead
which I thought was cute.
so fun because you can tell the energy behind it is as he's pushing the writers aside, right? And he's making his fucking movie for Hollywood. And it was so exciting to me. I remember at the movie ended, I thought, that was fucking incredible. This movie was incredible.
Hold on,
the
ready?
dude just
Can I-
went
can I write my
balls
words?
to
Hold
the
on.
wall.
Ready for this? That was Dave just punching Mike Williamson in the face.
I want to hear Dave's story now
What happened?
of how this
We
happened.
need to know.
Well, it's a long story, and I'm sure you're right. The funny thing
Thank
is,
you. End of debates. Good night.
the funny thing is, I never met Uwe.
Yeah.
I met him after the movie was shot.
Yeah.
I never went to set. So my intention on the whole movie was like to make like a really cool zombie movie.
Yeah, I'm sure you wanted a scary,
Well, yeah, we were
atmospheric.
trying for it, and then I saw the movie, and it was. Well, first I have to say, and Mark Altman, who shares credit with me on the script, who basically it's his draft of the script that was made, and he gets very angry at me when I bring this up, saying it's his draft of the script that was made. Because when I read his draft, I went in for a meeting and I said, this is not the movie we talked about making. It was like, no, it'll be fine and stuff. And they just used his draft. I went in and watched it, and it was like, there's the structural beats. Everything else has changed. Dialogue has changed. And what upset me was because I had made Dead Hate the Living this thing that was very, like, it had a lot of references in it and stuff like that. So when House of the Dead started talking about Romero and everything, which was all Mark Altman, which you have to remember, Mark Altman also co-wrote Free Enterprise with William Shatner, which was a very heavy referential film. Mm-hmm. That was all him. And I was like, this is not what I want to be. I don't want to be known as this. And everyone's going to blame me for bringing up Romero and everything else and all this. So many things. So I watched it. I mean, I watched the opening night in Burbank to a sold-out crowd at the AMC 16. Mm-hmm. And I sat in that theater. And I literally sat in that theater and watched half the audience walk out during the screening of the movie opening night. And I walked out because I was like, I can't.
Well, that must have been a cast and crew screener. Or
no, it was. No. It was opening night, public opening night of that movie. Opened in 1,500 screens.
That's just above general audiences' heads, I guess.
Yeah. And if you say so.
He's making a very solid defense, though, I guess.
So I'm glad the thing is, I'm glad you like his exuberance and everything else. I think he's a fucking moron. I'm sure everything that I tried to do with it, he didn't get.
And I totally, I would know that. You know what I mean? I'm absolutely aware that whatever you
But I
wrote,
love the fact that you have that you can grasp that. I mean, and there's something to be said about that. I never set out to and that's the thing. And the bitch of it is, it's a tough thing. You get that, you're one of the lowest rated movies on the IMDb. you have your name connected to that. And you love the genre. You want to make genre films and everything. That hurts you.
Well, fuck all that though, because
that hurts you getting work.
But we can segue that. I understand that, but that can. I had mentioned it. I'm wanting to
you really have nothing to say.
No, can we counter it? Wait, I want to counter with. I wrote this down.
It's a good
some very detailed notes.
Okay.
I wrote down a detailed review. House of the Dead. So boring. I recall watching it and thinking this is one of the dumbest films I've ever seen. ... Decent carnage. That was my internal.
That Halloween, I think it was 2005. I went as Liberty for Halloween that year.
I came up with Liberty.
Oh, now it's changing.
Yeah, I have to find you a picture then.
But you didn't do the
Halloween.
costume right because in the original draft of Liberty, that was body paint. There was no costume. It was body paint.
Man,
she painted herself.
I should have gone hardcore with that.
I
mean, the fact that they didn't know what a rave was and they did it during the day.
Yeah.
That's
there's
I
also
looked at that
beauty to all of that too. It's clearly like a guy that maybe doesn't speak English very well, interpreting things and.
Uwe still has an element of that though. I mean, like he was pitching Seed 2 to me at AFM this year, and he was like a little schoolboy telling me about this awesome painting he did in class. But ultimately, it's Seed 2.
But of course, because you know what, he's been making stupid money. I would have felt better about House of the Dead if I had actually made some real money off of it. He got fucking rich. He's got a ton of money.
Okay.
And the funny thing is, I've only met him once, and I met him at the AFM screening House of the Dead. I've never spoken to him since.
Wow.
Brian, did you like that film? Are you defending that film?
No, I wasn't down with House of the Dead. I did enjoy Postal. I thought that one was fun.
Really?
Him changing it up a little.
And there was one.
What was that Blood Rain one he did with a queen? And
It was called
the
Blood
first
Rain.
Hollywood premiere that I ever went to, so I have a soft spot for it.
I would say
Maybe
that it
because
was
the actor, I forget his name, he was in a bunch of Uwe's original movies.
Billy Zane?
His first few. No, he wasn't, it was like Sanderson or something, I forget. Young
Oh,
guy.
yeah. He was also in a couple of Romero films.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
He sat behind me, and then Uwe made everybody get up to do a speech, to do like the intro, and they didn't say anything. Uwe just railed against Hollywood, and the guy sat down. He's like, "Well, that was the most fucking embarrassing thing that's ever happened."
Ben Kingsley, right?
Yeah. And it was a premiere.
One of the
it was a
worst
Hollywood
performances
premiere.
I've ever seen.
It was at the big
He has that
Chinese,
ability
and the
to get
place
that.
was half full. Like they couldn't even fill it up with like the drunks off the street.
And the funny thing is, there's a documentary. It's on Netflix called Tales from the Script.
Oh yeah, it's good.
And
Larry Cohen
and the screenwriter of Blood Rain, she was a celebrated screenwriter. She had like done another film beforehand that was really like good and celebrated and stuff like that. She talks about her experience of doing Blood Rain in that documentary. It's worth checking out.
Right, because Blood Rain could have been an interview with a vampire type thing with the right director. Who knows?
No, because it was never meant to be. It was another video.
No, I will say I do not like a single film that he's done, but what I do respect is I don't think he's done a film yet that has not been ridiculously panned critically, but yet he still keeps making movies. And that takes some balls. And I kind
Wait a minute. I don't know. No, it doesn't take balls. It just takes having good investors and money.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, he has some good deals. But people always joked online that he had a deal with Satan, right?
Where are my investors? It's not like I haven't.
I think that frustrates me more than anything.
What is that?
Like,
I mean, do those movies make money, or what is his deal? Like, why does he keep getting?
I mean, some have made money and everything.
Alone in the dark and shit like that.
But he hooked in with someone at
foreign investors, probably,
and a German sort of investment thing that has now been like totally dismantled that he can't do anymore.
Okay.
And that's why he got to make
the German.
I mean, because he was making, like In the Name of the King or something, it was $20 million at the day.
Shit.
With Jason Statham. And I mean, come on. Those had huge, he was working with huge actors. He was paying them a fortune.
I remember you got mad at me because I asked you if you were going to go see that.
I have not seen a movie of Uwe Boll's. I've seen a little bit of Seed 1, but that's the only thing I've seen from House of the Dead to everything else he's directed.
So remember, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. That's the end of our show. Uwe Boll sucks.
What I like is the real debate hasn't even started.
Yeah, we haven't even. That was just one title.
It's just one title.
All right,
We're doing the 4-hour.
Elric, how do we do this?
I think we just throw out. Well, there's some that people really want, and people want shit like Wes Craven's last film.
My Soul to Take.
There's people who are demanding.
Yeah, we did
reasons.
have some Facebook demands today.
Yeah.
So I'd say we start with a couple of the big ones, and we work our way back to our more idiosyncratic, our personal ones. We just throw them out. I don't think there's any way we can do this
Who's
work.
for My Soul to Take?
There's somebody online, and me. I want to know more.
Oh, besides me.
I'm curious
else in this
because
room like
Here's
that
the thing
movie?
about My Soul to Take. Brian
We're
talks
starting
about it
now.
a lot, but I think you like it ironically, right? You don't. It's not you sit down and watch it and you're like,
No.
That's brilliant.
No, but it gets a bum rap that it shouldn't. It's better than Scream 4, that's for sure.
Okay.
So the first 7 minutes of Scream 4 are
Better than
good.
Scream 3.
No debate there. You know what? I'll take My Soul to Take over Scream 3 and 4.
Yeah.
I will.
It's Wes trying something different, slightly. He's a 70-year-old man writing teenagers. He's trying. He's doing. He's got.
So
his,
that's the.
But do we celebrate trying?
See, that's why I think
Wes Craven was
exactly.
not. He did not go to film school. Maybe he did eventually, but he was trained. He went to college. He has a master's or a bachelor's
Anthropology, right?
in
English, I thought.
he has English and in psychology.
Yeah.
He has a bachelor's in psychology and a master's in English. So he's got these fucking great concepts in his head that he doesn't always have the best.
yeah, I totally agree with that. I've always thought he's great at concepts, not great at writing.
He really needs a really good writing partner that can get. So if you like sit there and puzzle over it enough, you could see that My Soul to Take has this really fucking cool concept, but it's not quite there. And then the studio made it worse by reshooting half of it.
But the dialogue is
Who shot it? Who reshot it?
Well, it was Wes.
But yeah, he had to reshoot, but it was the studio.
And he's had that on like the last few movies of his.
Yeah, well, anything for the wins.
But my thing is like, okay, it's like you say, oh, he's not the greatest writer and everything. He wrote Elm Street.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a great fucking movie. It's a great
that was one
movie.
where his concept and the way he executed it.
He's done it 3 or 4. He's
Shocker's the same way.
Three or
Shocker's
four
like
times.
has this cool thing, but like it's not quite there.
Don't bury the lead. Don't bury the lead. Let's back up on Shocker.
But I mean, Wes has a couple of these.
Cynicism.
He's got a couple that you're kind of just like, there's some awkwardness to it, but this one just seemed to be more awkward than cohesive.
You could argue that with The Last House on the Left. It's like it's a great concept as a movie until you get to the cops.
The bumbling cops. But I think
But it
that
had
was
anger.
kind of,
It had something to say. It had a real energy
that
and
one
anger
did.
behind it. Yeah.
you definitely saw that kind of that trend in more of the films of the 70s where, you've got this punctuated excessive violence with these weird comedic moments like they do it in Candy Snatchers.
Mm-hmm.
And we see it in The Town That Dreaded Sundown. They do the same thing.
Yeah, a lot of them had tonal discrepancies.
Wes kind of kept going with that because if we look at like People Under the Stairs,
Totally.
it kind of comes out a little bit more where it's this weird mix of kind of violence with this awkward humor.
Well, and also something about his humor is it never lands for me. So like across the board for decades, his humor never lands. It's like on the nose. It's a little like you expect a laugh track with it almost. And that's where as a screenwriter, and I hate like talking negatively about an icon like Wes Craven, who's clearly made some of our.
But he's a better director than he is a writer, for sure. That's not even in question. Yeah,
he's good at concept, and in Nightmare on Elm Street, it's cool. But from Last House through forever, I've always watched his movies and thought, this is clunky, this is clunky, this is clunky, this is clunky. Even Nightmare on Elm Street, this is clunky, this is clunky, this is great. But right here, this is clunky, this is clunky, this is clunky. You know what I mean?
I think
Nightmare does have a very strange structure.
there definitely is, but part of it also I think is studio tampering, because I think when it's like when you listen to him talk about like something like Serpent in the Rainbow, even though he didn't write it, he definitely had it in, he was definitely there during it and everything else. I think studio tampering has sort of also affected that.
I don't know. The stuff that I have a problem with,
because I think Serpent and Rainbow and his undiluted sort of vision would have been a total vision instead of 3/4.
But the problem I have with Serpent and Rainbow is the last act.
The last quarter.
But that feels so much like movies of his that have come before.
Well, no, exactly. It feels like, and even when I originally saw it, it felt like studio pressure going, oh, you got to make this more like Nightmare on Elm Street because that was a hit.
Wow, that's definitely one of my favorite films of his.
And I love that movie, but that last little bit feels like, oh, here's the studio pressuring you to make it into.
Maybe do we know that, or is that him adapting a screenplay in his language?
I think it was studio pressure.
Does Craven have a just because I can't think of one off the top? I feel like his endings, like Nightmare on Elm Street's a great movie except for the ending.
Well, that was studio tampering.
I think Hills Have Eyes is undiluted Craven.
Okay,
Scream 1. Scream 1.
Scream 1. Yeah, that's true. That's actually one of my favorite
I like
endings.
the ending to Hills Have Eyes.
Hills Have Eyes, the original Hills Have Eyes is like really like fuck. That's powerful.
But that's another mix. That Hills Have Eyes is another example of like awkward humor with excessive violence.
Vampire in Brooklyn ends on a perfect.
Well, it works because you got the two opposing families, so you can have the two opposing tones.
But Hills Have Eyes. I mean, you just said, what did you say? That was an intense movie, and I feel like you watch. I don't find Hills Have Eyes. I like Hills Have Eyes.
They break in and rape a girl in a camper.
Who hasn't done that? But when
you're right. It's like Saturday night.
I don't find the villains in Hills Have Eyes to be threatening at all. I think they're pretty silly. They do the big no, and you see them so much. You get to know their family. The girls trying to get out. Their characters unto themselves.
I don't think you would have felt that way when it came out. I think that's in retrospect. I think if you had seen that when that film came out,
I don't agree with that.
I think all those films would have had that power.
Before I knew all the stuff that I knew, when I saw Hills Have Eyes and everything, I was like, even though I got to know them, it still disturbed me. It was like, because they were not people I related to. There was
Chainsaw Massacre disturbs me still to this day.
Yeah,
right.
Of course.
It's true.
But it's not, you can't say movies before Hills Have Eyes weren't disturbing, and they all introduced the antagonists as characters, and they all had big, bourbon noses, and it's like, I don't agree with that.
I think it's easy to say after the fact, because if you were around then and you hadn't seen a film like that before.
No.
Getting back to My Soul.
My issue with My Soul to Take.
You're implying that every movie
titles.
before Hills Have Eyes I find less scary than Hills Have Eyes because it was made previous to Hills Have Eyes, and I completely disagree with that.
I think we need
Mice
Argento.
Hills Have Eyes is like this pivot point to cinema.
But he's saying, had you seen it in the day, you would have been terrified. I'm like, yeah, I've seen movies from 60s, 50s, 40s, 30s I found way more terrifying than The Hills Have Eyes.
My issue with My
Maybe.
Soul to Take
You weren't alive
is
then.
not the plot. I'm getting this out there, kids. It's not the plot, because I actually find the plot to be rather intriguing. The idea of
concept's
the
cool.
kids all being born on the same day.
date's
They're
cool.
linked by this, serial killer guy who's
I
dead.
like that.
They each have a part of their soul.
I was with him, when he had like the two kids that were the rejects. I was even there for the California Condor part.
Yep.
But what killed it for me,
That's so actually.
I was kind of like, this is a cool concept. But what killed it for me is the dialogue, because it was like a demented Diablo Cody where everything was like, I'm doling out 5s and 6s now, bitches. And it was so hip to the point that I couldn't even catch what was going on.
I turned
really
to Simon.
It's fan time,
I
Mike.
turned to Simon while we were seeing it. We saw it at midnight on
hilarious.
opening night at the airplane. And I just turned to Simon. I was like, I just want one line. Where I don't have to like puzzle over it.
Every single, and that's the thing. That's where it kills me. Is you can write a script and you can have a hip character, but when every single character in there is hip and speaks their own language.
Was Brick
for
before
me
that or after?
Brick was after, I think.
No, Brick was
it
before.
before?
So maybe he saw Brick and was like, oh shit, I can do that.
Okay.
I think that's totally unfair.
Yeah, but
Why?
Brick is a nice little angsty film
Because
for me.
Brick is 50s film noir
Right.
done intentionally as
Right,
a
that's what I mean. He
noir.
might have seen that movie and been like, oh, I should do Brick.
But I think my soul take is Wes Craven going, this is what teenagers talk like today.
Yeah.
And he failed.
Has he got kids?
More likely.
yeah.
Of course he has kids.
Do they speak?
They don't have 5s and
He's got the mute
6s,
kid
not
from people under the stairs, no tongues.
They're older.
Prayer conditioning.
Yeah, I love the prayer conditioning's my
But it's
favorite
just
line.
such I always, if you notice, there's a theme almost, like a lot of the movies I pick, where like, I can't believe this is on 3,000 screens or whatever. I like because we
It's
get so
in
many
3D.
fucking horror movies that are like, yeah, this is clear, like,
Cookie cutter stuff.
Yeah, cookie cutter stuff. So I like when movies are fucking weird, whether or not
it's
they
weird.
totally work. That's fine. I just
And it
I'm
seemed cut to
thinking
hell.
if a movie gets a little bit boring, I just think of like, a studio exec watching this and be like,
Well, we'll let's put it in 3D. That'll make it better.
It's funny because I agree with at least out of your 5, 3 of the movies on your list.
Nice, thank you.
What's the part where the guy gets like in My Soul to Take, because I've only seen it once, where the guy gets like stabbed and he's explaining how he got.
Oh yeah, the blind kid. Because Wes loves exposition as well. So a blind kid comes upstairs and he's found lying dead on the floor, and rather than be like, "Tell my mom I love her" or whatever, he's just like, "You were downstairs getting a drink of water, and I was upstairs, so I came in through the window while he was in the bathroom." It's amazing. That's the thing.
Well, we should be happy a 70-year-old is directing a major film.
Literally, like almost exactly at the halfway point of doing horror movie a day. I was watching so many fucking movies that I had literally had nothing to say about after, and I'd have to write a review.
I wish there was a urinal in here.
So
I know. I always stop and go. I was like, tea break, guys.
There is a pause button.
I was happy with.
Or we can just...
And then the two leads are brother and sister, and you find out
Yeah,
like
you don't know their brothers. So that's a twist.
That comes, and it's like halfway through the film.
Like, wait, what?
And she has 2 different names too, which fucked me up the first time I saw it, because they kept referring to her as
Well, they call her
Fang, and then they were
Fang,
like,
but she was another-
"What's up, Jennifer?" And I was, "Who the fuck?" Oh,
Fuck is Jennifer.
now here's the thing.
Elric, don't pee on Glory. Glory, that's Glory from Buffy.
Have storyboards for scenes that aren't exactly in the end of the movie anymore.
Nice. Now,
Can
here's
we
the
talk?
thing.
But the funny thing, I'm sorry because I really agree with 3 of your picks.
Okay, I gotta look
Let's just
here.
get
Let's
into
look
it.
his
here.
other ones.
I agree with Brian's pick of Black Christmas.
Hell yeah, Black
The
Christmas
remake.
remake.
Yeah, we should talk about
Definitely,
that.
probably most passionately, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 and Lords of Salem.
Wow.
I liked Lords of
Not
Salem.
Book of
I'm not a
Shadows.
fan of.
No, Book of Shadows. No Hitcher 07. No Hitcher 07.
But I approve of at least one of those. Although you showed me Hitcher 07 and I couldn't believe it. that was fun.
Well, Hitcher 07 is out, and nobody else likes that one, right?
No.
I haven't seen it yet, so I can't speak
I'll
to
just say
that
it real
one.
quick. There's no sense of debate. I just say real quick. When they announced Platinum Dunes, they're like, Michael Bay has a production company. He's going to make horror movies. Hitcher 07 is the only one that comes across like Michael Bay making a horror movie.
Right.
And as a fan of Michael Bay's early work,
Armageddon
makes sense.
Oh my god!
When I watched that, when I watched Hitcher 07,
It's not like a Michael Bay version.
that one has the aesthetic. Everybody,
The other ones don't.
no. So if
That
I
one
want
does.
a Michael Bay horror movie, Hitcher 07.
You want
No, it's not better
you want
than
9 Inch
Rock
Nails, and you want that
it's
truck
got the hot girl,
flipping.
It's got the orange fucking look on everything.
Yeah.
So
It's the bad boys of the Platinum Dunes movies.
Yeah, not better than the original band.
I'll hold it
No,
for
no.
now.
But
I'll go.
I think that one, of all the Platinum Dunes, the 6 or 7 movies, I think that one delivered on the initial assumption of the promise.
Right.
Which is that Michael Bay was
Okay,
gonna
I
go.
get that.
Yeah.
Halloween 2 is the one.
Halloween 2, yep.
Halloween 2. I mean, because,
But I was in director's cut form. I prefer
Right,
the director's
I agree.
cut. Yeah.
That's funny because I actually prefer the theatrical, but I want to hear what you
because
guys like. The director's
I
cut.
saw it in the theaters, and I was like, fuck this movie. I fucking hate this movie. Fuck this movie. And it happens. And it happened with Devil's Rejects with Rob Zombie. I didn't like it when I first saw it. And then I watched it later. And I thought it was I was like, wow, no, wait, this is a director really doing something. I really, really do believe that with Devil's Rejects, that Rob Zombie was really directorially doing
great
something that was
movie.
really exciting.
But I like all movies. I'm Mike Williamson.
Elric is
After
slipped
urinating.
into Mike's. Oh, there you go.
I knew that was going to fucking happen.
So for Halloween 2,
Yeah.
I hated it when I saw it in the theater. And then begrudgingly, I was like, I don't know why. It's like, fine, direct cut, I'll watch it. I was like, here's a slasher movie, but when do you get a slasher movie that has these sort of emotional
Yeah.
plot, these hits that really work? It's a Brad Dourif scene when he finds Danielle Harris
He's
dead.
great in it.
It was like, holy
Those was the only thing I
shit.
liked about his first.
Yeah, the first one.
And
yeah,
I
he's
was
great.
like, God, I was like, holy shit. It was like, and it was so weird. It was so different. It was such a middle finger into what people expected a Halloween movie to be. It was like, I really respected it. I really liked Halloween 2, the director's cut. I was like, God
And
damn.
that's
They're
what-
like, yeah, I get
And
it.
that's
What's
what I
different?
wanted the first time around. Like from the start, I was like, "Why you're making Halloween? You know, whatever." It's my favorite movie. I don't want to see a remake of it, but I'll give it a chance because I was hoping he would make it a Rob Zombie movie. Instead, he made like a half and half.
He was
started
pressured
off
into it.
Yeah, and,
He made a
I'm sure it was
prequel.
the-
He made this weird
Weinstein.
prequel explaining everything
So it was
away.
like there was stuff in that first one that I liked. I liked a lot of the hospital stuff when he's a kid, when he's he's with Malcolm. But
When he
then
got
all of a
original,
sudden-
then it's
but
like,
then
here's
it's like he breaks
here's
out,
a
and then it's
30-minute
the Cliff
rehash.
Note version of
Yeah.
Carpenter's movie. I'm like, what the fuck is this? So the thing I liked about Halloween 2 is that it wasn't a remake of the original Halloween 2. Like it started off like you might think it might have been because Laurie goes to the hospital and he shows up, and then that turns out to be a dream. And it's actually just like what we never really get to see, which is like how fucked up the final girl gets.
Right.
Yeah.
And you almost never see that. If the final girl even shows up again, she usually gets killed. The only other one that doesn't is Sydney, and they just fucking never kill her, and that's the whole problem with the Scream.
I mean, I think that's what I really appreciate about the movie is he really does go for the emotional level with the character. So like
I'm almost about to vomit.
I
Fucking Stan.
and I
Angst.
really like what his DP does.
Yeah.
Yeah. The reason I haven't seen them in a long time, but the reason I saw the theatrical like 4 freaking times because there's always another screening or another Q&A or something that we would have to go to. And I ended up seeing a lot. The director's cut is good, but I just a little
What's
too
different? Someone tell me what's different.
Yeah, because
There's
I've
a
never
lot
seen the
different.
director's cut.
There's more
There's a
stuff
lot
with
of difference.
Danielle
Really?
and her. There's new ending.
Yeah, her and Danielle really hate each other in the director's cut, and I think that's part of what I didn't like is like it's a little more on the mean-spirited side, but that's just my personal taste. And I think if I remember correctly, I like the ending to the theatrical better because I think they kept it a little more.
Spoilers. In the director's cut ending, she dies, as
Right.
she should.
Yeah,
And you don't get. There was something else that they changed, but it's been like 3 or 4 years now for me too.
Is Sybil Danning in both?
no, she's
She's
in
in the
neither.
first one.
from the first movie. Briefly.
Oh, she's only.
I thought she was the
one.
nurse.
No, in the first one.
I thought she was the nurse in the second.
There's some goofy shit, the white horse and all that other stuff. But again,
but I like that. I like that. I like the fact that they
constantly,
do that.
Oh, this is Halloween 5. This is Halloween 2. This is Halloween 6.
Yeah, they didn't even use the theme in it.
For better or worse, he made Rob Zombie's Halloween.
Yeah,
which is what I wanted in the first.
And that's what I respect.
Wanted to see his.
Why did you want that in the first? Are you a fan of his other pictures?
Yeah.
I am too. Yeah. I am too.
I can't stand his pictures, except for the last one.
But also, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of filmmakers who leave like an imprint, and the Halloween movies never had that after Carpenter. Like they're all just like.
I agree.
I mean, I love Halloween 4, but there's no style in that movie.
No, but I agree. The only imprint was Halloween 3 because it was
completely
totally
different.
It was completely.
And Tommy Lee Wallace is also well regarded for making the Fright Night 2, which was better than Fright Night 1.
So you say
that's a whole nother thing.
We don't even have to debate that one. We just accept that. We move forward.
I think you're a crazy person.
Look, I'll agree with you. Julie Carmen is hotter than Chris Sarandon.
Yes.
I
Chris
agree on that.
Yeah,
I love that film.
by a little, just by a little.
Just
bit.
a little.
So what other one? So let's do Book of Shadows since that's in there, which is Blair Witch 2.
That's all I wrote.
All right.
Kept it simple. Convince me.
What'd you write?
All I wrote is convince me.
Elric never wants to see it again.
Me, okay.
Yeah, look, I saw it in theaters, and it wasn't because it wasn't like Blair Witch 1, because I didn't love Blair Witch 1. I thought it was good. But
have we stated what the point of this episode is? Because
I don't think
we have. Do we need to?
Well, for me,
what the fuck are we doing?
Let's
Freddy's dead, and we're like,
no. But let's be honest. There's no such thing as a bad film if you like it.
Yeah.
So any film that's being mentioned is clearly not a bad film because you like. I struggled to come up with any films on this list because I was thinking to myself, well, Chopping Mall, I love it. Is it a bad movie? Maybe to someone, but I love it.
But I love it.
So it can't be a bad movie. So I didn't write it down.
Honey and Marilla, which I saw in the theater.
I love that movie.
So what I did is I found myself trying to find ones that I thought, oh well, no one likes that, but I do. Like 976 Evil. I'm like, I guess everyone would hate that film, but I kind of thought it was fun.
I kind of like it.
Yeah, but I don't love it. But you like Chopping Mall, I love, and I
This is
can't.
more universally
Well,
panned.
anything that's good or bad, good or bad.
For me,
by definition, is
Shit
subjective.
movies
Right.
that you personally love that no one else gets.
and we don't like the term guilty pleasure because it's not. You don't
It's
have to
not
feel
guilty.
guilty.
yeah,
You're
there's
like,
no guilt.
It's entertainment.
But what I
Use
want-
as the to me, it was like the movie you use as like whenever you get into one of those stupid fights, like,
Right,
oh,
right.
you like that, but you like this, or
You
didn't
slept
even
with
like
my
that.
wife.
Yeah. So for Mike, it's Freddy's dead. For me, usually people like to.
For
call
Mike,
it
it's
shocker.
every
It's
movie.
shocker. It's everyone's shocker.
For Mike, it's every
Apparently-
movie he
Yeah,
likes.
Apparently, after a single trivia question for me, it's Phantoms.
For me, it's being friends with Mike. Everyone just assaults me for sitting next to him when William Friedkin assaults us.
willingly hang out with Mike Williams.
God, he's got the worst taste of movies ever. Before we did this show, I said to Rob, like, instead of us quickly hustling and trying to watch all these movies, which is impossible, I said, I genuinely want somebody to convince me to fucking rewatch Book of Shadows because I saw it in the theaters.
We're gonna right now.
And I really hated it. And it wasn't
to.
because I was comparing it. I just thought it was a boring movie. Wasn't interested in it. I was like, I never need to see that again. Now, I first got wind of this resurrection of Book of Shadows, I think from you and then Sam Zimmerman. I listened to you about Black Christmas,
He's
which
pointing to Brian Collins, 'cause
Brian
you forget
Collins.
that
I
this
saw
is
it in
radio.
theaters. Black Christmas did nothing for me in theaters. I rewatched
Yeah,
it.
that to me is cookie. I mean, I actually
No.
like that director.
I watched
more
it 2
than-
months ago at Christmas and thought it was fucking great.
Really?
Like great kills, great deaths, really well made. Like, it wasn't revolutionary, but really well
I
made.
really like that
Context.
director's Willard. I thought
Yeah, Willard's really good.
Willard's
Yeah,
great.
Crispin's good. But so that might be enough. But there was something about Book of Shadows, and I watched the trailer just before the show to see if I was, way off with the way it was
I don't even
made.
remember a
And the
trailer
trailer
number
just looked
4.
like it looked like The Craft on like bad rave pills.
Yeah.
Like, let's
So-
be
Well,
party.
again, I mean, another fun thing about a lot of my picks is that they're kind of like studio mangled movies that I kind of give the benefit of the doubt.
Right, because he wasn't happy with it either.
Yeah,
right?
so the studio, again, they kind of were like, what the hell did you do? Like, so you had to put some gore in, which is weird because the first movie had no gore.
Yeah.
Right,
Nobody
right.
seemed to mind. So they added like that, like the hospital footage where they're putting the tube in his nose and shit.
And the Marilyn Manson song at the start.
Yeah.
He wanted Sinatra's
yeah.
Witchcraft at the top,
yeah.
and they put a Marilyn Manson song in there.
Similar.
And there was a cut of his out there. Like, it's in
so
the
and
vault.
the other thing is that this Book of Shadows, the artisan kind of made him like cut in like present day and have like this flashback structure where his was totally linear and you weren't going to find out what the movie essentially gives away
till the
from
end.
top. But to me, what I liked about it that
Now, and before you say these kind of, did you like it at the time or did you like it later?
At the time, I was kind of like, mostly I just didn't know what to make of it.
Okay.
When I watched it again on DVD, I'm like,
That's how I was too.
Yeah.
Where the first time I saw it, I was like, well, this is different.
Yeah.
And then it grew on me a lot.
Because he comes from a documentary background.
Right.
And
I love all his other films, so it's not like I didn't like it.
no interest in making a fucking found footage movie.
Right.
Because he thought that was like an insult to what he actually
To documentaries,
does.
yeah.
But
totally.
he was kind of intrigued to the idea of like, well, what if we do this whole like, blurring the line.
Yeah, the meta approach.
Yeah.
Acknowledging the first movie.
Yeah, and the movie kind of curiously has it both ways where the characters, so if you haven't seen Book of Shadows, it takes place in our world in which Blair Witch Project is a huge hit. Fictional movie.
But in a real town, right?
In a town that they shot it.
It's still like Burkittsville.
Right.
So the movie starts with like all the people, like fans of the movie.
Tours,
This, they keep coming to this town and harassing the residents and, the people that live there. Like,
It's Artisan's new nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the self-aware meta film for Artisan.
But the movie kind of curiously takes both ways in that, they're acknowledging Blair Witch as a fictional movie, but at the same time, they're talking about certain things in Blair Witch.
Right. That start
as
to
if
happen.
they really happen.
Right.
Like I'm trying. I can't remember like Ellie Kedward or Rustin Power. One of those like Blair Witch mythology things they kind of talk about as a real thing.
Yeah.
And so that kind of like you can look at it almost like as a goof, but you can also look at it as him like really subtly doing that whole like what's real and what's not type thing. And then it just turns into like this cool like creepy weird. What the fuck's going on? Head trip kind of movie.
Yeah.
Post-Scream again, right? Post-Scream?
Post-Scream.
Yeah.
I've noticed a lot of the self-referential filmmaking, including one on your list, which we'll get to later, Urban Legends 2, Final Cut. I've noticed a lot of those don't work for me. The ones that then bring in filmmaking about horror films, for some reason, that satire is so on the nose, including Scream 4.
I don't like the whole like, oh, they're making a horror movie and they get killed. Like
that is an overdone trope that drives me crazy.
That's all of them. That's why they're there. That's why they choose that format.
I think that something like New Nightmare or
exactly New Nightmare was the one that did it right.
It works really well.
Of course, yeah. But that's because they got all the players on board, and it was an actual. Again, Wes Craven good at concepts, and he did a concept well. Most of these are just like, hey, we need a bunch of teenagers to get killed with, and they're making a movie, and it's a film class or whatever the fuck it is.
Because half the time with those, I'm just convinced it's a way like, hey, we don't even have to like really rework the set. So
we don't have to cover up the scenes of the movie.
Yeah, in general, I don't think they work. But
with Blair Witch 2, I really thought it was smart about it, where it was a film about filmmaking, but it was much more of the after effects of filmmaking and how it resonates with the audience. And I thought it was really smart. Not the first time I saw it. The first time I saw it, I was like,
all right,
what
I want an honest
but
opinion. No, honest answer quickly. Just tell me honestly. If I rewatch it tomorrow, will I like it, or am I still going to be like, no, you guys just wasted my fucking time? Honest answer.
DVD, and if either way you feel about it, you can listen to Joe Berlin's commentary after, because he explains the entire way his film.
What he got fucked, right?
Yeah, but I think his commentary is the reason that every DVD now says like the viewpoints are.
Nice.
Here's the studio on their own
like,
DVD.
it's not the film that it is.
Right. Which I might have liked because I like his films.
But I like the film that he ended up making, whether he likes it or not.
Yeah, he doesn't like it at all.
And that's the thing. I like that movie, and I think because I don't want to. I want to.
I like Jessica Larson.
Yeah,
dancing around
I like
naked.
everything. I want to choose my words carefully because I don't want to say necessarily that Blair Witch is overrated, the first one.
I've said that many times.
But part of me feels that where like I love the movie. I love the whole like the viral marketing that went into it before viral marketing, looking on the website and stuff that. But I think I was disappointed I didn't get to see anything. And then I remember the second one came out under a year, like not like 8 months later. The next summer it was something really like fast.
It was Halloween year.
It was different. It was different, but the thing is, I remember watching the first Blair Witch, but knowing that it was all fake,
right?
And it didn't work for me for 10 years. Then I watched the original Blair Witch again, and then I was like,
"You forgot that it was fake."
No, I didn't forget. I didn't forget it was fake, but it was like.
It somehow became effective after that time?
It did, because after seeing all this other found footage type of movies that didn't work, watching this one and going, oh,
it's really realistic.
It's shot on film. Was that shot on film?
Creepy.
Shot on film?
It's a mix of 16 and video.
No,
very early video then, yeah.
The first one, after revisiting again after almost 10 years, it really worked. And I was like,
I know what I think the main reason, well, at least one of the main reasons it works as well, that so many others get wrong, they actually shot all the stuff themselves. And they're
that's true.
Yes.
So many of them nowadays, they're not being shot by the actor.
Well,
they're
I
being
mean,
shot by a real character.
But bottom
who's
line,
thinking
anyway.
as a DP and not as a character.
not a person.
Not reacting in the moment.
Perfect example. The first Paranormal was reshot. Some of it was reshot for. They went back and shot. Yeah. They claim now 14 times or so. Mm-hmm. And that's not including the Spielberg approved, like, here's what you should do for the ending.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They went back and shot before it was done.
Well, I think Warren Pelly's on his 100th reshoot of Area 57 or whatever, you know.
But no, so you know what? The first one, I agree. I did revisit it recently, and the last 10 minutes of the original are really
the ending is creepy as fuck.
As soon as they get to the house,
it's
so
that's very
scary.
crazy.
And that always worked for me.
Yeah.
But the thing I think I liked about the second one when it came out, and even now, is that they didn't do the exact same movie. Yeah. And I always like when stories take that meta approach, like, all right, well, you heard about those things that happened in Blair Witch, like the backstory. Some of that might be true, some of it might not be. But what if there's an even more sinister like thing going on in the woods that you didn't even know about, like that's much worse.
You're talking about number two?
Number two. And
but see, the problem is the huge Hollywood approach with the swooping helicopter shot open. I'm not.
But it's a movie.
It hasn't grabbed me.
It's a movie. It's not meant to.
They're not trying to portray it.
In fact,
that was just a shout out to Paradise Lost, because that's how.
But there's no Metallica. You know what? There's no Metallica. So
that kind of kills it for me.
If you look at it more as a movie that was inspired by what Blair Witch did to horror cinema, as opposed to a sequel to the Blair Witch, it's like a cool little horror movie.
But the funny thing is, I got that.
But why didn't I like it?
I saw it, and it's still,
please explain why I didn't like it.
It didn't work. I got that one when I originally saw it.
I did actually see it.
I liked it when I originally saw it, and I like the first one. Flat out terrified me when I originally saw it. And of course I knew it was fake, but I specifically remember being at home afterwards, walking around the house at night. My wife was asleep and being really upset at that movie. And that's incredible for me. Wow. And the second one, I have not seen it since the theater. And I didn't even remember it was meta like this. In my mind, all it was another eerie movie that I thought was interesting and bizarre.
Yeah.
So to me, it didn't work as an intellectual comment on the first one. It was working as a movie. It was just working.
I just remember having so many craft-like moments. It just felt like it had the set design.
Well, it definitely has the girl in black. With
that's all I remember.
I agree, but you know what? I'm sorry to interrupt. Looking at the list, I really want to hear Rebekah defend Chainsaw 3D.
Are you
serious? I'm going to defend that with her too. I'm going to defend.
Okay, guys, I'm going to have to go to the bathroom at some point.
Before we do this, I'm going to speak for Brian because he has to go pee about Chicks' Chainsaw 3D. It's his favorite entry of the series. He said the savage imagery. He didn't want to see the main lead actress naked. He was hoping she wouldn't take her shirt off, and therefore the rest of us watching
Chainsaw 3D is that it's not the worst Chainsaw movie.
Yeah, no, totally. Renee Zellweger.
Thank you.
I have a really good story about
I'm
that.
glad. Thank you
McConaughey?
for agreeing that the McConaughey
it's the worst.
Is the worst.
Definitely. It's not even debatable.
Chainsaw 3D.
Oh, please do.
I'm from Austin, and they screened. Kim Henkel screened that at the Paramount Theater before years, 2-3 years before it came out. Its premiere. It was called The Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, that's the version I
have a story too.
Okay, so I went to this screening of the world premiere of The Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I thought it was, it was like okay to me. I was in high school and was like, it's whatever, it's okay. After the movie, Kim Henkel gets up to speak, and he says, the projectionist forgot to include one of the reels of the movie. So what you saw tonight was incomplete. And someone in the audience shouted out, would it have made any sense then? To the fucking right.
And that was William Friedkin yelling it out. That punk.
Yeah.
My story with it was quickly, I got invited to see it because I ended up cutting a very early promo for Return to the Texas Chainsaw.
Oh, cool.
So I hadn't seen the movie. And at the time, Stuart Gordon had offices at Disney. So he had access to a screening room, so he screened the movie. So when I saw Return to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre with Matthew McConaughey
Renee
and Renee Zellweger. I saw the movie at the Disney Theater with McConaughey.
All right.
I feel like he's already slurring.
All right.
I'm getting close. With McConaughey and Josh Lucas sitting right behind me.
Oh, really?
It's Josh Lucas, isn't it?
Because but because they were
He's
friends
poor man's
from-
McConaughey. Everyone knows that. Yeah.
No,
He's his backup just in case McConaughey falls down.
They were friends because of Dazed and Confused.
Oh.
Was Lucas in that?
Yes.
I don't recall Lucas in that film at all. I remember he was in that Renee Zellweger comedy.
Thought,
Renee Zellweger's in Days Confused.
So
She
I'm
walks
watching
by.
this movie and go, oh my God, this is such a piece of shit. what the guy
one of the
opens
worst
his
movies ever
shirt
made.
and he's got the nipple rings and the scars. Like, what is this? What does this mean? McConaughey or Lucas had no idea what it meant either.
Now, no one's defending that film, right? We all hate that film.
No.
Okay, let's dial it back to 3D, the 3D one. Because
So,
that
3D.
Okay.
3D, I want to know.
I am not saying that it is the greatest film ever made, and I'm definitely not saying that it's, better than some of the other Chainsaws by any means. But what I like about it is if me as a director was approached and told by a studio, okay, we want to do a Texas remake, we want to include certain elements, it's got to be gory and all this stuff that the studio would want. I liked the things that they chose to play up. Family first. I love that element because that for me was one of such a subtle element of the original, because everybody's paying attention to the victims as they're running through the woods and getting stabbed with briars and looking at, chicken feet tables and things like that. So for it to take that tiny little family first element that you see in the Chainsaw Bunch and then to tease that into a full length movie, I love that element. And I liked it because it did finally give Leatherface a little bit more than just lipstick. And it kind of, for me, it brought him to a different level.
I liked it for a completely different reason. I did not intellectualize the movie one bit.
Wow.
When I saw it was coming out.
Nor did its makers.
Well, truth be told, that's probably true. But that's sort of what I liked about it is it was pure popcorn.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw it, I saw it in D-Box, okay, 3D D-Box.
Wow.
And I had seen only one movie previous in D-Box, and that was Terminator Salvation, and I thought, I'm never doing this again. This is the worst experience. And I saw Texas Chainsaw 3D was in D-Box, and I thought, I'm going to do it for this. I'm feeling like this is going to work. And to me, Texas Chainsaw 3D was excellent exploitation filmmaking. Period, because it was exploiting the 3D process. Mm-hmm. It was exploiting iconic characters. It wasn't like Chainsaw 2 where it's deconstructing something. It wasn't like any of the others where it wasn't like the Platinum Dunes one where it's oppressive. I really dislike those movies. They're not.
Actually, yeah, let's stop there. Who liked the Platinum Dunes remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
I didn't hate it.
I didn't hate it, but I didn't like it for the same reason as you. It felt like it wasn't trying anything new. It's just doing the same thing, not as well, not as organically.
That's why I like 3D.
I didn't
it's
hate
not
it,
that.
It was post-torture porn oppression, where it was just like, here's what horror is. We're going to take someone and rip their fucking body apart. It's going to be intense.
Time to a chair first, leave him there for an
touching
hour.
his
Get
nipple.
close-ups.
3D, it was way more popcorn, and I was having fun. And on top of that, my seat was fucking swirling around, and it was just like, this is a theme park ride. And I'm not going to chalk it up to great filmmaking, but as a theme park ride, as a popcorn experience, it totally worked for me.
I did not like it in 3D because I saw it at the press screening with like Brian and Ryan and everybody else, and everybody came out bitching about how horrible it was, and I was with them. I was like, oh man, this was like a bastardization of something I love.
The press screening was in 3D or 2D?
It was in 3D. And then this is like months later, it's on VOD one night, and I'm like, you know what, I should watch this again. And on the second time, I appreciated it, but I was by myself, quiet in my apartment.
It's totally fun, and it's not trying to do anything.
There's something liberating about
it. It only wants to entertain, and that's what
Here's
I
the thing.
really liked
Here's
about
the thing where, unfortunately, where I get their intention. I had a real problem with them using the original footage and everything else, and then inserting Bill Moseley into that original footage. I just had
Question of what year it took place.
Well,
really?
Yeah, that never made sense.
But
right?
I was also confused because she should have been like 40 and she was obviously like 20.
She was 40. I
This
thought
is
she was 40.
nitpicking, though. A movie that's
It's not nitpicking if they're going to go out of their
That
way
doesn't
to
make
it
or break a
direct
movie.
sequel.
But they're not. Come on.
But you guys are
They're
interrupting Mr.
anticipating-
Parker here.
The thing is, I'll be very fair in saying that I came with baggage. I came with baggage with all the other ones and everything else, and I'll pick Leatherface Chainsaw 3.
Yeah, I like that one.
Over this movie.
As would
Oh man, I love that film. Are you kidding me? That's one of my favorite
a great
films.
one.
It's a very flawed
That's a
movie.
fun- yeah, but
it's
it's
a very
fun.
flawed movie, and I have a lot of history with that film and so many connections and everything else.
But the Saw's family.
The Saw is
You know?
Saw is famous.
As is Ken Parade.
Nicely done. So that is why I think that
Well, I hear what he's saying,
holds.
but Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Tobe Hooper's, is one of my favorite films of all time.
It is the Gone with the Wind. It is the Gone
I think it
with
has
the
one
Wind.
moment
I'm
in
able
that
to
film that's
sever
better
it.
than almost every other horror. Even one moment in that is better than, but like just when the door slams, is that moment's more powerful than most entire classic horror films.
agree.
Like it's that much. It's that effective.
Cuz when she's
Exactly.
We need that soundbite. Do your thing,
I
cuz.
think that's what made me hate the Platinum Dunes one is if you look at the original Texas Chainsaw, though most people recall it as being like heavily gory or heavily violent,
No, it's
they
not,
don't
yeah,
show anything. You see, you see the meat hook, you see him pick up the girl, you see her
You
face.
see the
but you don't
emotion.
actually
Yeah, you see the
anything.
emotion of the violence.
Because
Yeah.
that's neither here nor there, though, because I adore Chainsaw 2, which is ultra
And that's
violent.
ultra
But that's a
gory. You're right,
comedy.
'cause I love it
and that
too.
is a comedy.
It
That's a
is.
satirical comedy.
And that's the thing. I respect that movie.
That's a
on
lot
its
of
own
fun.
level.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Because the original director literally was like, "I'm doing something completely different.
Yeah.
and I'm throwing it in your face.
Yeah,
it's
which
like,
is great. Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys didn't get it the first time. We were making something.
It's his
subversive
Bride of
and funny.
Frankenstein.
It's his
Yeah.
Bride of
Yeah.
I like that one because it
Yeah.
does. It veers into splatstick territory, and I really love part two for
But the
that.
thing is, it's a reflection of the time.
It's
The original
totally 80s.
was
Yeah, it's totally 80s.
Exactly, and it's a reflection of its time, and it came out right the year after.
So, back to 3D. Back to 3D. We have two. Well, no. I'm just trying to sum up. You
Tally?
both liked it.
Yep.
I had a lot
You hated
of fun
it?
with it.
Dave
Brian?
hated it.
I wanted. I wanted. I
hate it, but
didn't.
no,
Yeah, I don't. I don't like it.
Oh, come over
Rob?
to the dark side.
I was somewhere in the 50-50 where I sort of 50% hate it, but sort of am entertained.
I don't understand how
think
you could
actually
hate it,
Dave,
though. I don't understand how you could. Who hated it? You hated it?
I do because
part of it.
and the thing
just
is,
didn't care.
and I call
That's different than hating it.
and I'll admit it all comes from a place of like I would kill
To do that.
to
yeah.
do a
To do
chainsaw
that.
movie. To do
It's
a
just- it's-
to
we
do a
all-
chainsaw movie.
I gotta say,
notwithstanding.
I thought it was fun, and I didn't see it when it came out, so I avoided. And I've noticed that with a few films, if I avoid when they come out, when the negative stuff happens,
Yeah.
I watch them. Even Lords of Salem's was like that. I waited for like 4 months, and when I watched, it, I was like, oh no, this has quality. A lot of stuff I wouldn't do that way and wouldn't enjoy it, but
And I'll say this: it's a total subversive sort of reaction to the movie. I hated the way he looked. I hated the way Leatherface
That was a big hang up
looked.
for me,
I
too.
hated the
about it.
mask. I hated the look.
It was too
of
clean.
him.
but I liked his little
He
room.
was
I liked his
clean.
room. That was cool.
It's not
That
a
little room
dirty,
he's
it's
hidden in?
not a dirty, oppressive movie. It's a popcorn flick.
No. But I just the style, the design of the mask. I hate it, and it's weird. But I get fixated on that. And I hate that.
We've now touched 3 of
It looked
100 times.
it looked like a big round baseball on his head.
It was very clean looking too, like
It
all the
looked
skin
like a big
tones were the same
round
color.
baseball on his head, and I hated that.
Like if they just said it was another Chainsaw movie with no relation to any of them, I'd probably like it more. But
Dear
when they
Rebekah
did that whole
McKendry,
intro-
Yes, dear.
why
Well, the
in the
intro,
sweet
it's
fuck
open-
of
it's-
Christ
it's
do you
that-
like Phantoms?
Are you serious? What's
no.
all the attack here?
This is a
No,
film.
you have a big
Okay, so
topic one.
I used this in trivia last week, and I actually only used it because I was trying to come up
Can we
with
sing
songs.
it? Let's sing it.
I'm falling to pieces. Okay.
Wait, what was the trivia round?
The trivia round was audio,
Music,
and that was
But-
supposed to be my super hard one. So what I did, it was an audio round, and I pulled songs that they had to be used kind of in a major way in films.
What
and
kind of
so
films?
But yeah, major film.
Major class, like
class-
prominent.
I said major
Prominent.
releases.
No, all you said is
Phantoms had a
prominent.
major, prominently used, prominently
With the
featured
star
in
of
movies.
Batman coming up. Yeah,
And
that's fair.
so, and I mean, Phantoms
Peter
was a
O'Toole,
major
he's a big
release,
actor.
guys. But
It was.
the way that Ryan and I write our questions is there's 8
Did you
questions
make
per
it up on
round.
the spot?
No, I will
Ryan
kick your
does
ass.
it.
Hey, wait.
No, Ryan may.
Wait,
but-
in defense, in this room, who doesn't own Phantoms on DVD? At least DVD.
I don't know.
I don't-
Phantom,
but
I don't need to ever
see
see
it
that movie
in the
again.
theater.
Okay.
I don't own it.
Oh, sorry, you go.
I don't own it, but I saw it once in theaters and I did like it.
Thank
but I
you.
haven't seen it
See?
since, so I don't know.
I'll
Okay.
defend one
So
thing about
here's
that
my
movie,
thing.
Rose McGowan's sweater. I will defend the way that hugged
Anything
her
with Rose
body.
We
McGowan
do
pre
love
car
breasts.
accident.
But Ben Affleck holding a gun when
Okay.
they're
Car
when the
accident is
flick
kind of
is about as
crumble crashy
believable
for
as
me.
Jessica Chastain holding a bass.
Okay, here's my
sorry.
thing with Phantoms. Just because I included it in trivia does not mean it's like my pinnacle movie here, guys. But
favorite.
let me say, the reason I do defend it a little is because
She makes love to
when
it.
I saw it every night, I am dry humping that DVD.
Oh,
nonstop.
Dave Byrne McKendry, not
Okay, so the first half of the movie, I actually think presents a really good movie. It's got some decent jump scares. The music is used well. That song is used well. It's got a great setup.
It's quite compelling.
The second half falls to absolute shit. But I will say, I also like the concept of the second half. The execution is absolute crap. But the idea of the thing that absorbs people's mentality, and because they think it's a god, he becomes convinced he's a god, I think that's awesome. But the follow through with the second act or the third act is terrible. But just them wandering around the town trying to figure out what all this weird
None
batshit
of us
crazy
hate
things
it,
are
right?
going on.
mean, I liked it. I think you think I didn't like
Hate's
it.
hate's a
That's
hard
totally
word.
fine.
It's a very flawed movie.
yeah.
But no, I agree. There's
It's a movie that's like a punchline. So you just like
it's a punchline.
It's
It's,
weird
a
because
punchline
Ben
now,
Affleck is in it, I
but the thing is,
think.
it's a Affleck punchline. But
Yeah.
the thing is, there's some really good atmosphere in that first beginning of that Colorado town that's
Yep.
totally deserted. Everyone digs that. It's like, let's drive to a town, and then no one's there.
And no one's there. And it's such a cool
And
setup.
it's,
like
creepy.
For
And
me,
then
this
Lee
is
Schreiber shows up and destroys the whole
exactly. No, it's when Peter O'Toole comes for me that I'm like, oh,
Don't play Peter.
no, Peter
comes
O'Toole
for
is
you,
great.
huh?
It's just that character.
Why
when
did
he
you
gets
hate
there.
on a man who just died?
Oh
That's
my
so
God.
fucking cool.
Why do you hate
Rebekah
Lawrence
McKendry
Arabia?
killed Peter O'Toole.
Thanks, guys. Sort of Jesus.
No, Liv Schreiber. It's
No.
interesting watching that how bad he was back then and how good an actor he's become. Like on that TV show, whatever he's on now, he's so good compared to then, where everything was just playing off these like mannerisms that were totally false.
I call it the Weinstein disease.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
90s.
And
Yeah,
wait,
that's
is
true.
Affleck bad in it? Because I remember him being
Oh my
really bad
god!
in it.
Oh my god! No, he's terrible,
right?
and his
But-
hair is just so
his
high.
hair, it's
Hair is
very,
up here,
it's
yeah.
very, it's kind of anime
like
hair where it looks like an anime character. Where
And he's
it's
the
like
fucking
very
sheriff, right?
known.
Yeah.
He's 22
He's
years
younger
old
than
sheriff.
Schreiber
Yeah.
and probably
Yeah, it doesn't
Which
make any
is the
sense.
weird thing because he's supposed to be kind of like this debonair sheriff, but in actuality, if you actually pay attention to this character, he has no idea what's going on and he never really does anything. I mean, she, as the scientist, is kind of like spearheading the whole thing. And
that kind of
anytime that
problem is because she's too young too and everything. But
Yeah.
the thing is, you're right. The idea of Phantoms has got a lot of really interesting ideas
That's what
that
I
just
think.
don't
So
work.
slurred.
I know.
There's a bottle of Jack Daniels here that is
I'm
almost
using it
empty.
and fuck
I've had a lot of it too, to be honest. But
God,
that is my point. Is if you just think about the core root of Phantoms, the creature that absorbs mentality and therefore thinks that he's a god, I love it.
I did like
you're right.
They find they come into a room and they find like a bed with just a pile of.
It's got, like, watches and things like
then
that.
They find a pacemaker and they realize that like it's not just,
Langoliers-esque.
like,
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? The whole
But at
point of
half
this
the time.
is you've
I love
convinced me to
Langoliers.
revisit it because I've
Yeah.
only seen it. You actually reminded when you were talking about the empty town because I remember I was in Arizona visiting my brother and I went by myself to go see this movie. There was one person in the theater, and when I came out, I'm in a state I don't know. It's completely quiet and empty. So I remember being creeped out
Yeah.
because I felt like I watched this movie and then I walked out into the street and it was like totally empty and I still had it with me, although I don't remember it at all because
And
it's been so long.
I do have to say the
I wanna
marketing
revisit it now.
campaign on it was shit because it came out during like all those not
This is
another teen.
post-Scream too, right?
Post-Scream.
Yeah, post Scream. So this came out
Hands
during
on
the
a
not
poster.
another teen movies that came out during the 90s where it's all of the, the star cast sitting in a
Post-apocalypse.
diamond
Yeah.
way. So it's very, I know what you did last summer,
That was
final.
before Fact
Yeah.
Check.
All I remember is in the commercial,
Yeah,
something
that was
like
the
Ben
dimension
Affleck
on it. Yeah.
is saying, I would go with other. Or
Yeah.
whatever. Like, what is
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know what that means.
But there's like scenes where they're in a kitchen and they hear something singing down the drain. And they're like leaning in to look at it. And there's just so many good jump scares. They're like looking through ovens to find, what's leaking
I am
out.
gonna-
My problem was that seems like the Blob.
It does a little.
It's very blobbish.
Chuck Russell.
The remake,
Much better.
Also, The Mist.
Yeah, it does have some missed elements.
You know what? On this one, I think I'm going to go with I'm not convinced, and I think it's a piece of poo. And I'm going to push the button to move
I
on.
started rewatching it today because
Let's move on from fantasy.
I reckon I want to go on this one. This one could be quick because the three of us have agreed on it before on here, but I'm curious what you guys
Freddy's
think.
Dead?
Poltergeist 3 first.
Poltergeist
I like
3.
Poltergeist
Because
3
I like
quite a
it.
bit.
I
Yeah,
think
me
I
too.
kind of love that film. I love the special, the
Dave Taylor's
practical.
shaking his
Collins are
head.
nodding no.
Love the practicals. I think it's a creepy setting for a film. I think they did a great job given that Heather died and some of the things
Loving
they
the
did.
practicals is what you have to talk about when you talk about Poltergeist
Okay,
3.
I want to go to Dave because people know we like this film.
No,
Let's go to
we have
Dave.
not explained why we liked it before it's dissected by David.
Well, we have, but you can you tell us why you like it, and then Dave can. I love it.
I'm really impressed as far as movie magic goes
Yep.
that they took an effects film, an effects franchise, and decided we're doing in-camera effects.
Yeah.
That's the
That
most
is
impressive.
With all
thing.
mirrors and
incredible.
light, it's incredible.
And when you
can't
watch
argue
it,
that.
you don't get that anymore. When you watch a 200 million, when you watch
Yeah.
Man of Steel, you're like, I don't give a fuck. But you watch Poltergeist 3, you consistently are thinking, how are they doing that?
Yeah.
And you're
Yeah.
watching
Still, to this day.
Still to
Mirror
this day.
effects.
And the enter is Gary
And it
Sherman's
is
just
so
a fucking
compelling.
magician.
It is so compelling to watch them orchestrate these effects
Hasn't worked
pieces,
since.
knowing that these are done in camera.
Yeah.
That is really incredible.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that the acting's great. I'm not going to say that the
Wait, Tom
dialogue's great.
Skerritt's good.
But I will say, as a movie, it really impresses me over and over again as an example of brave filmmaking. It's really brave to go into a fucking MGM franchise and say these effects set pieces that have been done in the past, where the last movie ended with them like in the netherworld and they're flying around. And all
Yeah.
this. They say, we're
Number
doing
two
this-
is a bunch
we're
of
doing-
bullshit.
It's like it's a magician trick. They're quite literally doing it with smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, literally.
And it's
Yeah.
really impressive to me to watch these filmmakers say we're doing magic show now. And it's not, and it's going to be you're watching it as if you're watching it at the Magic Castle or whatever. We're putting on a magic show.
Yeah.
I'm really impressed by that.
I like the cast a lot too. I mean that always helps a lot when you see it's Nancy Allen,
Nancy
and,
Allen, Tom Skerritt,
Laura from Bloyle, and just all these people.
I feel like we've said enough. Let's move to the next title. For anyone can interject and ruin my image of this movie.
But they don't like it. So
What? Somebody
Brian
here
doesn't
doesn't
like
like
Poltergeist
it?
3.
Dave, come on. What's going on?
My problem with it is, I agree, the practical effects aspect of it, I like. The actor who played the original Kane, Reverend
that's right.
Kane,
Yeah.
died before the movie.
Right.
Smells like a frat house in here.
That's because we're all naked with painted bodies like Liberty.
It's not my fault.
You walked in, it's like sweat and beer just hit me.
My frat house, it has people wearing raw head Rex, 8-bit Freddy Krueger. I drink your blood.
But Dave, I want to ask you, did you not like the
one I
guy
would've
played in
hung
number
out
3?
at,
I like the guy played Kane in
The
3
thing
too.
is, I
thought he was creepy.
My big problem with Poltergeist 3 was that the guy from 2 had died and wasn't Kane.
But everyone dies in that franchise. Come
on.
That's why we have good special effects, because everyone dies in that franchise.
The only good part of Poltergeist 2 is the guy who played
I'm wrong for Peter
Only
Rose.
Craig T. and Nelson gets out alive.
is the guy who played Kane.
No. Poltergeist 2 has great. Poltergeist 2 is really
That's the
neat.
one with
That's
the
an amazing
worm who
mullet.
emerges,
No,
the
but I'm
little
saying-
creature.
No, that's not a good movie. I'm
but
sorry.
The thing you remember
That's not a
is
good film.
Poltergeist
The
is
actor
good.
who played Reverend Kane.
Yeah, you
Wasn't he a
do.
poet from New York? Like he was actually like.
But that's out of a franchise's control. I mean, they need
what
to.
I'm saying is,
Same with
like,
Heather dying. That's
But the thing is, in a sequel,
Crap luck.
in
Yeah.
a sequel, when you get someone who makes such an indelible contribution to a film,
right.
and then you go to a sequel that he's not in, there's something missing there.
Unless you get someone better, like number 3 did. Because Kane on the fucking window wipers, boom.
That's like saying you
That's
don't like
scary.
Roger Moore.
I don't have to say
Bonds.
anymore.
That's
Yeah, but he's Connery didn't die. Like there should be like the
He will
respect
eventually.
of getting like get a new villain, because it wasn't like Kane was super important to the.
That's
overall.
ridiculous. Are you trying to tell me that every movie that's ever replaced an actor because they died?
No.
or
The
something
fact
is
that no.
automatically
He died. They would have gotten him if he hadn't died. And
Yeah,
the
it
fact
wasn't
that
like-
Is
You
your
can't do a Poltergeist
only
movie without
problem
Kane.
with Poltergeist 3 is that dude who's in like
It would've
3
made-
minutes of
no.
running
I'm
time?
fucking texting Gary Sherman.
Yeah, Kane isn't really a very big part of it.
in Poltergeist 2.
In
No,
3.
No, 3. He's a major part, isn't he? He's creepy as fuck.
You see him in the window a couple of times.
No, he's creepy.
What I'm
creepy.
saying
He's
is
creepy. I
that
like him in
in
3.
Poltergeist 2, the Kane role was so
It's what makes the
indelible
movie.
to that actor
Hmm.
that if he had been in 3, it would have made 3 a better experience for me.
I agree with that. I still think that 3 stands on its own.
No.
No.
Mike, I'm gonna be
I really
Dave.
do.
I'm making you watch it again.
I even think it has the balls to go from the other 2 are scope to flat. I think that's even impressive.
there
That's a nerd. Did you just
That
get your
was pretty
virginity
nerdy.
back
Let's
with
go
that
to
question?
nerdy.
Let's go to format.
I think
It's going
So you a big fan of Halloween 5 then?
It's
Halloween
going-
5's flat?
It's
compared to
going
the
so
scope?
it's
You
going
all
so-
get your
Five is
virginity
flat
back for
so
this
many reasons, it's
conversation.
not even funny.
Well, here's what's impressive about it is it's like we're going meat and potatoes, bitch. We're not doing scope. We're not doing ILM. We're doing fucking in-camera effects, and that's how it's gonna be. And I'm totally into it.
But before I throw Mike under the bus, do you have anything to say, Brian, about Poltergeist 3?
It's not a good movie.
It's not a good movie. All right, that's it.
But,
That's it over.
explain why you're wrong, because I'm curious. Because I agree with you about a lot of things. I think you're a smart guy, but on
I
this,
thought that it just seemed like a movie that, like, you know,
you've never
they
seen it.
tried too hard to recapture what was made. Like, oh, we got to make sure that this family's like cute and funny too, and they have little funny things to say to each other. I'm like, no,
Really?
yeah.
But I thought
It
they were kind of
wasn't
cold and
they
like
were
the
because none of
metallic.
them really liked Carol Ann.
But Tom Skerritt's a pervert and everything he's in. Come on. He's like Poison Ivy all
Spend
over.
more time like making them a different family rather than trying to make that the same.
But isn't that how an adoptive family would be on
No,
all?
because they don't want
Yeah,
them.
but but you found that out because they weren't all cutesy. They talked. They were like, "This isn't even our kid." They said it multiple times. Or I don't
Yeah.
want to have to take
That's
her to
a-
school.
no,
This isn't our kid.
It says a lot about your family that you're like, I don't like this movie because the family unit is.
I think this film's saying a lot about your family, Brian.
But that's what's that bothered me about Poltergeist 3 as well. It's like, oh, so Craig T. Nelson and JoBeth Williams just fucking abandoned their child.
They don't
They
call
don't
them. They're
care.
like, yo, your daughter's
let's
like
push the
fucking
problem
missing.
onto.
But they did it for her.
That's
They did it.
Hollywood, though, and
That's
as
Hollywood.
filmmakers, we know these are issues that are.
Yeah, let's look at it from Gary Sherman's point of view. It's like this is the best film he
Let's
could have made
not,
out of
and
that.
let's move on to
Okay.
another
All
film.
right, I want to go to number 3.
Wait.
Number 3.
What's number 3?
The one that me and you fucking hate.
Which one?
Amityville 3D. Undefensible.
Oh, are you kidding me?
Undefensible.
That's a terrible
Undefensible. Except for the last 5 minutes.
I've said
Undefensible.
numerous
Boringest
times,
fucking
and I've said it on
Exactly.
the
It's
show.
not boring at all.
It is the boringest movie.
Oh, I
And
liked
They went
Meg
to
Ryan
scope
in
from
it.
flat.
Meg Ryan.
Meg Ryan is great in it. She
For
stands out in it.
She's great in those
For 5
2
minutes.
scenes
Okay,
that she
I'm not-
appears in.
As Lori Loughlin.
It's got Aunt Becky in it.
Here's what for our listeners, so that it's not just a chaos. Here's what I like about Amityville 3D.
Thanks, Mike.
The first
Our listeners.
movie and the second movie. The second movie's cool because it's really bizarre. It's really out there.
Yeah, second movie's
But
batshit
the
crazy.
first
We
movie
agree.
and the second movie are really clunky. There's a lot of there are so many open scenes.
They're all clunky.
But part 3, here's what I like
Three's
about
not
it.
clunky at all.
No.
That's a well-oiled machine.
It makes sense. From
It
top
is-
to end.
No, hold on a second. It is a well-oiled machine. Here's what I like. Here's what I
tell
like.
us why, Mike.
It has as opposed to 1 and 2, it's got like a Hollywood director, and I really like that it makes this. It does go scope. It does go Hollywood. It does go production value, and what it delivers is
It doesn't even have the fucking house in the first hour and a half of the movie. Where's the production in the office?
No, that's bullshit because the opening credits have the house.
Oh, yeah, opening credits. But seriously, they're in an office building half
I'd
the
like
time.
to actually discuss that sort of
Okay.
mentality where
Okay.
you
Oh, I'm
approach
sorry, yeah.
sequels as if, why isn't this like the one before?
Because it's about Amityville House.
No, fuck that.
Where the murders happen.
I
Amityville.
don't watch a movie and say I'm judging it on its title. I'm going to judge it on the
That's
movie.
why I'm there, though,
No,
because
no,
of the
no.
title.
No,
I'm there with Amityville 3D.
Yeah,
For the
that is
house.
kind
It
of.
So
fits
you would have gone
well-
if this is just like this is the slowest, boringest fucking haunted house movie ever, and they
not
called
slow.
it like
It is slow.
3D.
It's
You would've,
slow.
like-
As far
Yeah.
as I think he's a really good at directing. I think that the shot selection is great. I think that
directed
it's
it?
edited well.
Michael Williamson.
He directed like Grease 2 or something. I don't know. He's,
Okay.
he's
Richard
I like
Fle-
Grease
Richard
too.
Fleischer?
he directed
Richard
Grease, right?
Fleischer's
Yeah,
directed
did
some
Soylent Green.
like Return
Soylent
of the
Green.
Three Musketeers
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like big film.
And
I'm
he
just in the movie, but I'm going to take his beer.
brought to it a slick style that I really appreciate, because the first one is super fucking clunky. I like the first one.
I like the first one.
It is all over the place. But
They're all super clunky.
Yeah, they are.
3 is the
Stuart
one where,
Rosenberg.
3 is
Except
the one where
Amityville Dollhouse.
Oh, number 5?
3 is the only one.
8.
8.
How many
I'm way
Amityville
off.
movies out there, Becca?
Somewhere between 11 and
11
13.
and 10. Anywhere between 10 and
They
11.
stopped counting.
Be sure to include the one that hasn't been made yet.
Shut up. I like its slickness. I really do. I like it as a slick ghost story, a fun ghost story. The first scene is really clever.
Okay.
I really appreciate that.
There is one scene in 3 that I really do like, where she
No, their monster thing was cool.
I'm gonna guess it's where she comes out of the water.
Yeah, that
it's
was
where
cool.
she's
We liked
walking
that.
upstairs and
That's
all she
very
does is
scary.
turn back
That
and
part
look.
is
It's
good.
very chilling.
No, and we liked them, and we watch on 3D on his TV, and we liked the
there's
monster
a
coming
monster,
out. But
there's-
that's in the last 10 minutes.
No.
Which is
It burns the fucking girl alive in her
Whoa.
goddamn car. This is.
Are you getting this peaking in here? Are we like blowing your audio
shit.
out with our
It
screaming?
burns
It's
her
intense.
alive in the car at the top of the third act.
It's pretty good, but it's at the top of the third act, for Christ's sake.
Executive division.
There's
I don't think this can be
passion in
defended.
here.
I think we
Can
have
you
to.
hear it?
We can't defend
I think we
it.
can't defend
Passion.
this. There's 1 against 6 here, and
Yes.
7 of us.
Becca,
There's 8.
Becca
There's some
likes
extra
it.
people
I
came
do.
in to revolt against this film,
I like
so we have to
it.
move on.
Unbelievable.
Okay, guys, I'm picking the next one.
Let's talk about some more.
You're picking the next one because I wanted to throw Mike under the bus.
Okay,
especially after last one.
okay. If we're
Tire
throwing Mike
tracking.
under the
Fair
bus, he's
enough.
giving me shit all day on Facebook. So fuck him.
Here you go. Here's your chance to get revenge. So, since we mentioned Poltergeist before, Mike Williamson's favorite filmmaker of all time is Tobe Hooper.
One of my favorites. Yeah.
He will defend every single theatrical Tobe Hooper movie.
Wait,
including
what does that leave open?
The
That's not
Mangler.
theatrical.
Well, like
Well,
night
you don't
terrors.
get night terrors. You don't get
Crocodile.
toolbox murders.
But I really like Toolbox.
I think
I didn't
Toolbox
like- I
Murders is
liked
actually
Toolbox
really
I do
good.
too. No,
I was
don't
surprised
worry,
by
I like
that.
Toolbox.
Broad. I want to start with the Mangler because that's the one that everyone gives me shit for.
Wait.
And
Did he direct Poltergeist?
I think that
Yeah, but the thing is, the funny thing is, and look, and I'm going to say I love the movie,
yeah.
The Mangler?
but when no,
Poltergeist.
No, don't get me confused.
no, when I was thinking of guilty pleasures, I would have originally picked Life Force.
But everybody
But it
loves
is a good
Life
film. That's a
Force.
fun
But
film.
now it's
Now it's
considered-
more popular.
It
yeah.
took me
Yeah.
a
I
good
agree
long
with that.
time before I liked Life
Yeah.
Force.
I consistently get shit for liking the Mangler. Here's what I'm going to say about the Mangler. First off, people seem to dismiss it on concept alone, which they usually roll their eyes like it's a haunted laundry press, you know. But
book was
Becca said
good.
something. Becca said something earlier about concept versus execution, and that's what I argue is a movie is not its concept. A movie is its execution of the concept, and I really am impressed time and time again with the Mangler's execution. It is absolutely berserk. This is a movie that casts post Silence of the Lambs Ted Levine as a good guy. That's where you start. That's where Tobe Hooper says, here's where we're starting tonally with this movie. Ted Levine mumbling drunk is the fucking good guy. Okay? And then you get the first scene is incredible. It's got this industrial era giant metallic thing that's supposed to be folding laundry. He's clearly not taking this concept as literal. This is like, and I get laughed at when I say this, it's like German expressionism to me. This is an industrial era machine spewing steam. Lights all over the place, shadows, low angles.
It's very much like Robert Ween's.
Okay, no, I've actually,
I think you're totally right.
I've never seen this before.
Bold filmmaking.
But just, I have to say, I've never seen The Mangler before, but from his description, why can't I remember? I think it was called A Day in the Life. There's this film, German expressionistic, and it was like one of the first montage films, and it was
No, it's
all...
Ziga Vertov.
Ziga Vertov.
His- yeah.
Yeah,
Man
his,
in a
like,
movie
Man
camera.
in a movie camera. And it's
Great
all
film.
these scenes of industrial Russia. Am I right on that? This is like freshman year film
I think
school.
it
I
is.
watched
I
this,
think it's filmed
but
in
it's
Russia.
all of these like a
Editing
montage.
techniques and montage and camera.
And it's all of these like, you know, garment factories and things like that. And for some reason it seems
Yeah.
very Russian
It's
to
like
me, so I'm
VHS
going to
too.
guess with that. But that's what I'm picturing now is you have reached Ziga Vertov
It is
level.
so unlike any movie you're going to ever see in the theaters again, and that is a good thing for the Manglers. Not like I don't want someone to snark say like, "Oh, you should never see anything like that." It is so bold.
Can we talk about England's performance then?
It is incredibly. He's got his white contacts. That shot, that scene where it's a low angle dolly shot spinning around him as he walks around and around and around. It makes you dizzy, and the whole movie makes you dizzy. And it's colorful lights. It's absolutely berserk and bold.
I'm going to take a moment to
with the
admit
Mangler.
defeat tonight. because this is a film that I want to watch again.
Yeah.
Because you're
I
passionate. Not
want to
tonight, what you
watch it
said, but
because
over
of
the
it.
last couple months, I saw it on video when it came out, and I remember thinking this is really over the top, felt a
It
little
is
boring.
over the top.
But
Yeah.
It's
the
spawned
fact that
2
you have
sequels.
stayed with this,
Mango 3 is
I
the
want to
best
see it again. Also, now I will ask
I
this:
know
why
the
is it so
director.
hard to see? Is it just
It's
because
not hard to see.
I don't think it's on a
we
popular
had a
DVD
tough time
format.
finding it.
I think the DVD is out of print now.
Is it out of print?
I think it is.
So come
I
out
think
like
it
a
is.
Snapper case from Live Entertainment.
How many sequels does
No,
it
no,
spawn?
no. It was New Line. It was a New Line release.
And the unrated version, which is it's integrated on VHS, they have the scenes separately on the DVD. It is so berserk that violence is way over the top.
I like Englund's performance because it is a character performance.
He's unleashed. It's like an id unleashed.
He's got a lot of makeup on, but it's really good makeup.
And he's usually
You guys
quite
are
subtle.
just kind of. You have moved
That's my last word for the
Mangler
day.
up.
No. The thing is, but my thing is, I don't think it's a good movie.
Okay, I wrote it down. This
It's
is
an
impressive
it's an-
because
it's-
I've written it down, meaning I'm going to watch it this week.
It's an absurdist movie, in my opinion.
It is absurd, though. It is absurd. Intentionally so.
but not in a place that it works for me.
What doesn't work for you?
When the refrigerator goes haywire and gets possessed, that's when I.
And that to me was actually quite disturbing. There's a body inside, a little
It
boy's
doesn't.
body
It doesn't.
inside this
It
refrigerator.
becomes silly.
Well, the whole thing is silly, though. The whole
Mangler
thing
3
is
is the best?
out
Is that what
in outer
Collins was
space.
saying?
The whole movie is in outer fucking space. It is in outer
Wow.
space, but it's not one of these unintentionally outer space. Like you're watching like House. What's the fucking movie called? House of the Dead. It's not like
House of the Dead.
It is like laser.
Sandra Bullock's in it.
To me, it feels like laser precision berserk.
No.
Yeah, it's
I
laser
don't,
precision.
I don't,
berserk.
I
Okay,
don't
guys.
agree with that.
You cannot have that machine look that way and not know that the filmmakers were
The
like,
design of the Mangler, quote unquote, the machine in that sense, but it's weird. I come with baggage because I read the original.
Package over every movie.
No, because I read the original story.
Yeah, so did I. I am coming
fuck
from
all
that.
that.
So
You know what I mean?
no,
Fuck all that.
but I'm sorry. My faulting of not loving the Mangler.
Why do I remember in the original
I
story?
had
Also
baggage.
likes Lawnmower Man. By the way.
I like the one.
I like Lawnmower Man. In the original story, though, it wasn't. Was it to fold laundry? I thought it was a cotton gin.
I've
No,
never
it was
even
to
read the
fold
original.
laundry.
Okay.
It was still a laundry
What
machine.
was the cotton? Wait, was that night shift? I remember
Graveyard
a
Shift had
cotton
cotton gin.
graveyard shift.
Graveyard-
That's it.
Graveyard
Okay, that
Shift,
had the
yeah.
cotton gin.
Yes.
That's a fun
Yeah.
movie too.
Yeah, I like graveyard shift. That one's kind of fun.
But that what
I
you
would
say-
defend Graveyard Shift over the Mangler any day.
Well, you say
Okay.
that when you come to a movie with baggage because you read this. I think you
I'm not
have to
saying it's.
sever
I'm not
that.
saying it's fair. I'm just saying because I read the Mangler first, and that's what was in my mind when I
And
saw the
actually,
movie.
like me, I read The Shining, and then I saw the movie. I was like, it's definitely different. It's definitely got a
absolutely.
different, which is
But-
what Stephen King, dislikes the movie The Shining. But then if you sever it,
But unfortunately, when I saw Stephen King's version of The Shining, I disagree with him.
the McGarris one.
It's good
When I
timing,
saw
so-
Stephen King's version of The Shining, I disagree with him.
Buzzing.
Wait, he didn't like Stephen King's version of Shine?
He's talking about
Okay.
the
It's
tele
got the
movie.
topiaries.
Enough about the Mangler. We're going to revisit it.
The Mangler is fucking good.
Let's talk about other
Killer
ones.
POV fans.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please, what do you got? What else?
Okay, let's see here. Let's see. What do we got here?
What do you want to bring up?
Slumber Party Massacre 2, which I don't
That's
think is a
Elric.
bad movie. I'm on your side.
Is that the
I am-
guitarist one?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I am on your side for that.
I
The
haven't seen that movie
Ford
too.
Fairlane version of
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
You know what? And this isn't. I picked these ones because again, they're movies I actually genuinely really like. I don't know if many genre fans are even talking about this. Slumber Party Massacre 1 is a really fun movie of its time. Corman was really ahead of the time because he was literally giving opportunities to women to direct, which is super cool. One of the best people I've met since moving to LA is Deborah Brock, who made the second one.
Oh.
She's one of the nicest people I've ever
that's
met.
awesome. I didn't
She's-
know that.
She's really goofy. We had her on the old show I did before Inside Horror. It's called This Week in Horror, and she's a real character. And,
That's awesome.
And most amazingly of all, she was an editor for Corman for a long time. He gave her a shot. She directed this. I mean, she's funny, and it comes across. The
My
dream,
friend DP'd too.
Oh, cool. The comedy in 2 is fantastic.
It's awesome.
Her dream sequences are fucking amazing. They're almost like Buñuel, like they're surreal, weird, giant zit exploding. You know, the stuff I'm actually least crazy about is actually, surprisingly, to people who will hear me defend it, is the guitar playing Psycho. I don't really give a shit about that, but it's fun. But it's actually the dream sequences that the film's based on. And Deborah actually ended up being the producer of 2 Vincent Gallo films, Buffalo 66 and Brown Bunny, and she had a lot of trouble with him in the second film. Well, she really fell out.
I rant about that on the air last week?
Well, Vincent Gallo in general is hard, but it's fascinating.
I own his demon.
To work for someone like that, you have to have a certain personality, and she's a really, really cool lady. Still making movies. Made a movie called The Dunderheads last year with Haley Joel Osment and the girl from Up in the Air with George Clooney. What's the girl? The brown hair. I think she was in Scream.
Anna Kendrick?
Anna Kendrick. She's really good, and I think this is a really fun film. Anton Lilich, I think, is the name of the is it? Ateus. Ateus Lilich is the driller killer. That's the part that got a lot of the press, and it's fun. He's like related to the family who own the Detroit Red Wings and Little Caesars Pizzas. He's a multi-billionaire, you know, and that's the only thing he ever really did. But I think it's a really fun film. I think I wish Slumber Party Massacre, which is being released on Blu-ray really soon, I wish they were releasing all 3 again.
Yeah,
Number 3 is really dull. And it's funny because I talked to Amy Holden Jones and Deborah Brock, and they both said the lady who directed the 3rd is like a lawyer now, and she's really boring. And so it made sense why hers is the kind of boring one. And then Jim Warnowski kind of took over with doing Sorority Massacres.
Yeah.
But totally different.
Totally different, but you know.
What was cool about the Slumber Party Massacre movies, Corman at least stuck to.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Women
it's really cool.
directing those movies.
You know, Corman doesn't get, for certain things Corman's done just from choices and giving people opportunities. That's where a lot of his icon level status is deserved.
He makes
you know?
smart decisions.
It's worth giving it a shot. You know,
people are going to like part 2.
And I saw part 2 before I saw part 1. And this is when I was like, 12, going through video box covers. I saw it and was like, ooh, kick-ass guitar, man. I like my teased up hair. You look hot. And so I rented it and I watched that one first and loved it. And then when I went back and watched 1, it didn't excite me nearly as much.
And supposedly the guitar sold for big bucks on eBay.
Really?
Big bucks on eBay.
She told me who owned it
recently.
No, she did.
Someone owned it.
She said she sold it because it was just sitting in her house, and some collector was going to really look after it, and she sold it.
And I wish it was me.
Yeah, it is really cool.
I wish I could have that guitar.
But the comedy,
awesome.
you know, I like a great horror comedy. I think it's a great horror comedy. I don't think it's a great horror film.
No,
but I do think it's a great horror coming of age.
Definitely like going, Nightmare on Elm Street is popular. Let's do these weird dream sequences. But for what it was, I agree. It totally worked.
And great tagline: "If you go, don't go all the way." You know, they just always. It was all about the first time, and I think from a woman's perspective, that's pretty fun. You know, especially at that time where that did not exist in the genre, really. So that's a film that seems pretty easy. I wrote this one down because I wasn't sure if that's even hated, but the times I brought it up, Sleepwalkers is like one of my favorite Stephen King adaptations, and it's like it doesn't compare to Dead Zone and Shining, but I flat out grew up. Now, a lot of films, and when we all talk about
our age,
but we talk about this a lot on our show, is that the important thing about a movie is often when you see it, like personally, to you personally. And I saw that at a time where I had a boner bigger than this room for Maginomic. Because Twin Peaks and Mick Garris a couple of days ago told me something very funny, which was because I told him I loved Sleepwalkers. I was like, I fucking loved it. And he goes, you know what really sucked is that we had to shoot the fuck out of that movie by avoiding all nudity with Madchen because she was all prudish. And the next movie she did was Dream Lover, where she's fucking, it's a porno with James. I know, and I love that film too.
Dream Lover is amazing.
Yeah, I like Dream Lovers.
I had a Sleepwalkers poster hanging in my room through most of high school.
Yeah, I think it's a genuinely great little movie.
Did Sleepwalkers and Lawnmower Man come out on the same weekend?
Pretty much.
I saw both of them the same day, and I remember really liking Sleepwalkers a lot more.
I think that Sleepwalkers...
I like Sleepwalkers more than Lawnmower
It hit me definitely like at a preteen point where I was starting to date, and kind of the whole opening where it was so serene and the innocence of it, and they go to a graveyard.
It's classic Stephen King at that point, I think. You know?
And that I remember absolutely loving. And then the guy gets like, incestuous with his mom and turns into a cat. But
I love that part.
Everything in the kitchen sink sort of Stephen King. Right. He's just throwing everything, and it's just totally fun. It's not serious.
But the use of that song, the Sleepwalking song,
it's a great use of a song.
So beautiful.
I had the soundtrack. I listened to it nonstop, and the Enya song too. I remember being really affected by it, and the
I think
other-
what got people excited was it was the first
Original.
Screams in the title.
original Stephen
Yeah.
King script.
Right.
Even though Creepshow probably it was still adapted at some part from his stories.
Do we all like that one or?
Yeah.
I really
No, he didn't like it. He
think
gave me a crazy look.
I'm half and half.
It's just really bland and like forgettable.
No, but see, I agree with you about all his stuff except that. I don't know why. That's the only one of the
Are you
McGarrison.
kidding? I
Yeah, it's a-
loved his stand. I loved it.
I like it too.
3/4 of the stand. And that's
I
why
like
would
Critters
go.
2 a lot also. Critters 2 saw in the theater first time I ever saw tits on the big screen. That's impressive. That's important to
For
me.
the record, I believe Mick has a 35mm print of Critters too.
Oh, yeah,
Might
Critters.
make a fun.
No.
Sleepwalkers is like McGarrison's
No,
hair.
because it would still be Critters too.
I think it's
Perfect, bouncy, soft, and makes you feel
bouncy,
good.
Exactly. It's
Yeah,
so much
it's
fun.
exactly
It's
like
luxurious.
McGarris. If you ever have the joy of seeing McGarris's hair,
And you know, it not only is it
Yeah.
bouncy and fun, it's also a little perverse. It's got
No,
you
it's
know,
totally
Just like
perverse, man.
Garris's hair.
There's incest.
Oh, yeah.
Sleepwalkers
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
blatant.
and if Alice Kriege was your mother, you would do it too, right?
But Mick
Come
always
on.
has, even you look at the Master of Horror, like a chocolate, there's always this
Oh, yeah.
pseudo
Yeah, I think-
sexual thing.
I think that
going
is
on.
running. He wrote a novel that was actually really
Yes.
sick. He's into erotic fiction. So, I mean, I just think that movie, I don't know if it's hated and I don't know if was
It's
right
not
for this
hated.
category, but I don't think people talk about it as a really good movie. And I think it is a really good movie, you know?
Well,
Fucking cat.
the thing I like about it is there is something creepy about cats.
Yeah, yeah.
And thank God it was made pre CGI because those would all be
Yeah,
fucking
yeah, it would be
CGI
terrible.
cats.
It'd be terrible. Throw one out, Rob.
Let's see. What of my list? On my list, I had Deadly Friend.
We've kind of talked about how Wes is.
We all like that.
Yeah,
We've hit.
it has
Wes a
flaws
lot.
in the writing, but it's fun.
That is like you'd read like stuff and they'll say like that's one of his worst movies.
No, I think I could never get through Chiller, the TV movie he did. Does anyone see Chiller?
I've never seen that.
I actually liked it when I was young, but I haven't seen it literally since I was like 12.
Deadly Friend seems to be also one of the ones that.
Deadly Friend's kind of schizo.
It has its issues. I mean,
It's a theatrical.
Deadly Friend is a book, and the character in the book is 12. And then they upped him to like 16,
Yeah,
17.
16,
but
17.
Didn't change the plot, so he's like still being like harassed by bullies. I'm like, guys, go to.
But you can't look at the book.
Oh, it's down him.
Let's talk about Freddy's Dead.
Yeah, you know, because I have Freddy versus Jason. I said I'd defend that.
Both are terrible
Anyway,
movies. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Freddy's Dead is awful. Come on, guys.
Okay, Freddy's
Both
Dead.
you
I
and
definitely
Mike.
have to say that hit me at like the sweet spot where I was really into horror films. It was one of the first movies I ever went to see by myself, and I was really young. I'm surprised my parents, but they like dropped me off at the mall. I really wanted to see it, and I went to see it by myself. It was also my first 3D movie.
Yeah, it was
The last 10 minutes because it's
Freddy's-
outrageous.
Yeah.
I'm
really
aging
fucking
myself
annoying.
so bad.
Freddy's Dead, not unlike Chainsaw 3D. I still, you know, I saw it when I was in high school too. I made my Trapper Keeper, Freddy's Dead, the Final Nightmare Trapper Keeper. Okay,
You
that's
are
how much
mad.
I
Okay,
saw
then
two
it
times.
wins right there.
But I've watched it dozens of times since. It is so much fun. It's better than Chainsaw 3D.
Giant
but not,
Q-tip.
but not unlike it. It's total popcorn, and on top of that, it's a living cartoon.
It's a parody of the Nightmare films, though.
It isn't, but it's a cartoon. It's a live action cartoon, and I think it's just. I mean, it's delightful. It's clever. It's funny.
I like his enthusiasm
It's-
about it.
It's.
Yes, because it's serious.
That's what you do when you're doing like, hey, let's try this. That's not what you do when you're ending a series.
You do when you're in the
There you
series
go.
after the series villain has already become action figures and he's already on MTV and you're calling him 1-800 numbers. That is absolutely 100% the appropriate way to end the Nightmare on Elm Street series. And
Go
it
even
really
further into
pisses me
nonsense?
off. It pisses me off when people say like, oh, the sequels because they're funny. It's like, fuck you. Part one is part one. Once you get 5 sequels deep into a fucking franchise where the villain is an MTV character, you cannot make that scary anymore. You absolutely cannot. New Nightmare deconstructs the fucking series. It's not a continuation of the series. So as far as Freddy Krueger as a pop culture icon, Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare is absolutely the most appropriate way to approach that character and give him a send off. They went 3D. They went cartoon.
He
went
became the
celebrity
biggest stand-up
cameos.
comic during it, and
I absolutely, and that movie, I swear to God, feels like it's 15 minutes on me. Every time I watch it, beginning to end, it feels like it's been 15 minutes because I'm in love with Freddy's Dead: The Final
right.
Nightmare.
and I enjoy. I mean, everybody's like, and they go to that weird town. Well, I mean, they go back
Phantom's
to
ass.
yeah, they go back to the town, and I love that element. I love that they go back to the town, and it's just so batshit what happened.
It opens with him as the Wicked Witch of the West. This sets
I
the tone,
love the opening. The opening was really fun.
You cannot. That it says it right there. You're either with us or you're against us, because Freddy Krueger is
But for me,
we've drawn the line of Freddy dead.
Mike, we're talking about it backstage, and it felt more like it would have been better as an episode of Freddy's Nightmares or something the backstory.
No, you're talking about the backstory.
Yeah, the backstory part. Yeah, that's what I mean.
Trying to do what Brian wants is to sort of wrap up the series, give you some backstory.
Give it a little
If you're gonna kill
respect.
him off, do it in a way that pays tribute to the series as a whole, not like, oh, this is the end of the
What
series.
is the series as a whole?
John
though?
Saxon.
All had a
Coming
continuity
in.
except for that one. That one completely.
Yeah.
True. They dropped the continuity by
Yeah.
that one. But you know what? The only reason the reason it stands out for me so
Who cares
much.
about continuity when you're 5 sequels deep? Who the fuck?
The people that fucking gut you to the fact that there's 5 sequels.
But I'm there, and I'm in love with it, because here's the thing.
But are you the only one?
No. Becca's sitting
I
right
like
here.
it.
You and Becca,
Mike, are you the only one?
Here,
It's
let-
popcorn and it's pure joy. That movie
Becca
is
only watched
joy.
20 minutes of it.
And what's
Oh my god, I will
Did you really, Becca? Only 20 minutes?
kill all of you guys.
What's great about it
Oh
is
my god,
Very busy.
I did that once, and Brian Collins, what the fuck?
I am speechless. He just called it pure joy.
Freddy's dead.
it's
I think
all
he said
beautiful.
exuberant at one
called
point. Did you guys hear exuberant?
Freddy's dead is pure
Let's calm down. Hold on.
We have to remind our listeners that just because Mike talks doesn't mean it's real. These are opinions being stated.
It's also sort of beautiful that Rachel Talalay directed it. This is a girl
Yeah,
that's
right,
been
right.
with the franchise.
Did she do what's up with Tank Girl?
Ghost in the Machine.
She goes to the machine.
I
which
need
also
more whiskey.
Really like. But
So do I, and
What was her relationship to the franchise?
So I don't
she
give a
started
fuck.
as like a PA.
just
She
drink
was
it
like
out of
a
the bottle.
PA and accounting and
That's interesting.
All the way up to actually being in charge of ruining one herself.
Really? Yeah, nicely done. I think,
All I
okay,
wanna
we'll
say
move
about
off
that
Nightmare.
is-
Okay,
is,
so
much
you
fun.
know, and I've said this before on the show previously, but I remember when the remake came out, me and Lawrence Raffle from FearNet marathoned all the movies to prep for the remake. Of
Wow.
And I just remember the two things that stand out to me is like when we got to 5, it's so long and boring. I remember Lawrence like looked at me and said, I don't want to alarm you, but we're only 15 minutes into the movie.
part 5 or part 6?
Five. But then when we got to 6,
I don't want to alarm you, but we're 90 minutes into the movie. We're
The
not
podcast?
even 90 minutes.
6
we're
is
3 hours into the podcast.
3 hours in.
6 is energy non-stop.
no, but
It's actually Friday now.
Watching it in that context of watching them all in a row, and by the time I got to 6, which is like 2 p.m., 3 p.m., or whatever it is, it just became the scary movie of the franchise, where it's like this is the parody version of what we've just been watching.
Right.
So look, when it came out, I was totally stoked. I will say
She's a
this about
doll,
it.
though. How can you be upset when you can buy a child killer doll at Toys R Us that the finale of the franchise is a joke?
Yeah, but the
Because
thing
he's
is,
been made a joke.
the people that
Me.
no.
What are you talking about?
Okay, look,
You know, what's
dating
my
myself
favorite
now.
franchise.
Dating myself now. You saw it in high school. I was in California. I saw Freddy's Dead at the Egyptian Theater before it had been remodeled. Now it's what it is now.
Dave Parker's 56.
66.
How old are you?
He's older than Wes Craven.
I'm older than Methuselah. And it was still a piece of shit.
But I'm telling you, I've rewatched
Also
it.
terrible 3D.
There were cockroaches
I
in
wanna-
the theater crawling
I
around.
want to
me.
move to saying more recent of Rob's.
Wait, before that, really quick,
okay.
all I want to say is that the Freddy's Dead trailer kicks ass, and I wish it delivered that.
Okay, yes.
Here's what I want to hear.
Yes.
Here's what I want to hear.
Trailer.
Wait, I want to ask you guys, is Freddy dead?
Hey guys, let's bring the volume down. I think Parker's ears are bleeding.
I want to hear a dissenting voice that isn't, it sucks. I want to hear why you think it sucks.
I can play devil's advocate.
Here's the thing.
I-
Goofy comedy doesn't work.
What do you mean goofy comedy doesn't work as a horror?
got a giant Q-tip.
Roseanne Barr
But how
and
is-
Tom Arnold.
Yeah, Roseanne Barr and Tom Arnold was a low point, but that's pop culture.
But that was the pop culture reference.
And they did Greta
I'm
Garbo.
wearing an
Rain on
8-bit Freddy
Drugs,
t-shirt
Rain
right
on
now.
Drugs
He
joke
was
in
a video
1991.
game. He was a video game. He was a Nintendo game.
But that's the thing. But that's the problem. That's the problem.
Yeah,
That's
they
why
were
New
embracing
Nightmare
the
worked.
problem and started
That's why
trying to
New
fix it.
Nightmare was good.
Because
because they did exactly what you're saying, but made fun of it and then deconstructed.
Brilliant. New Nightmare is brilliant, but it's not part of the series.
The only good thing
it's a deconstruction.
It's the end of a series.
About Freddy's Dead is and 5, I would say, is there's stylistic elements of 5 that I really like.
Yeah,
visual.
Sure.
Not story wise, but
Hawkins.
what I'll say is the only good thing that for me that came out of those was New Nightmare, where Craven was like, "Look what this has become."
Yeah. That's his commentary on being left out.
Let's make it back scary again.
Before can we go on? I just want to ask this. I'm just genuinely curious: is Freddy dead? Like, is that character over after that bet, or could somebody reboot this again?
Yeah, no,
reboot it again.
It's too strong of a character.
And I'm not meaning Freddy vs. Jason. I don't want another matchup.
No.
I mean his own
Freddy,
movie.
Even beyond the remake, I do think because the concept of nightmares is something so universal that everyone has.
But it won't be Jackie Earl Haley.
No.
It can't be.
Did we talk about why that's a failure?
Well, I want to comment on something that Dave just said, where he said, Wes Craven made New Nightmare to say, look at what this has become. And we touched on this before we started recording. And what it had become was like EC comic. No, it was like an EC comic, except part 5 was actually trying to bring it back to Gothic a little bit. But I don't see anything inherently wrong, because we discussed earlier, is it bad that Frankenstein, the Universal picture, ended up meeting Abbott and Costello? And I don't think there's anything inherently wrong, especially once, you're so familiar with a villain, you can't be afraid of them anymore.
But you can do that in a separate...
But it does strip them of their power. It doesn't, nothing wrong with it, but it does strip them of their power.
It doesn't strip the first movie of its power.
You don't watch Frankenstein meets Abbott and Costello as Frankenstein 5 or 6 or whatever. Like, they're saying, like, this is the final Nightmare on Elm Street movie, and it's totally embracing all the things that made it.
But you're acting like 2, 3, 4, 5 are like the first one, and they're not.
Yeah.
Every single one stepped up the comedy.
No, 2 didn't. 2 didn't. Not 2. 2 is very serious.
It was by 3.
Seriously.
3 he started to get witty, and by 4 he was like a stand-up comedian.
And that's where the series went. So you can't say people weren't anticipating a nerve-rattling Nightmare on Elm Street. They're anticipating pop culture.
And I agree.
Then why would 5
but the thing is...
Because it was Gothic. Because they drew it back away from where 4 had stepped. 4 was a straight up... 5 was straight up. It was definitely straddling line of Gothic horror. They had the rape, for Christ's sakes. They had the nun rape in the fucking movie.
Yeah, it had that cathedral.
It was definitely trying to be a little more serious than 4. It didn't have anything like Freddy with the sunglasses.
But I do like the comparison to an EC comic, because EC Comics always had that kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You're just reading a comic.
He's the Crypt Keeper by part 6.
Yeah.
Not every story, though.
No, but there's plenty to pick from.
No, and I get it.
He sounds like he's about to take you outside to the parking lot right now.
Let's step aside.
No one. Okay, well, he wants to mention Freddy vs. Jason even.
I put the clock on because
I just want everyone to know on my 5th beer. And
can't wrap this up.
There is a good shower scene in that movie.
Everybody's too drunk to drive home. We can't stop here.
You want to hear something funny? This is true. I'm not kidding. Before you say this.
We can't all talk at the same time, goddammit.
God damn it, we can't.
Parker's going to kill us.
True story. Every single title that I looked over, any defense I had, literally started with, that had a hotter girl in it. And I'm not even joking. Like, literally, Rose McGowan, Freddy vs. Jason. I was like, it had that really good shower scene.
Howling 2.
Fright, Howling 2, Sybil Danning. Fright Night 2, improve the love interest. I was like, really? I am just this misogynist beast of a man.
And
I don't know if that's a problem.
Maybe this is like a Mars-Venus thing here, guys, but there are very few movies that I pinpoint as I like it because that guy is dreamy. There are definitely guys that I paid more attention to, like Lost Boys. For some reason, I really fixated on the character Marco, and he was like super hot.
Which one was Marco?
Blonde hair. It was kind of like that Adam guy who used to host Headbangers Ball.
It's not Alex Winter from Freaked?
No, not Alex Winter. He was always kind of the weird, like he would have been like, the one, he was always the wingman. But I really liked the character Marco, and for some reason, like, I would always pay attention to him during scenes just because I thought he was hot.
He's the one who died in the bathtub.
Yeah, no. Yes, I'm sorry, he is the one who died in the bathtub. He was the blonde. But for some reason, that's still a good movie. What the fuck are you guys doing?
Do you know what's amazing to me is I can't take Brian seriously because he has one headphone on right off. As if he's Christina Aguilera about to sing like a big solo or something. He's like in the studio.
He's breaking into Toxic in a sec.
I hate having both.
Are we gonna? I want to ask you guys seriously. Right now, are we gonna transition Freddy vs. Jason or Dr. Giggles?
Or Blood Diner.
Well, Blood Diner's no,
Okay,
but we all love it.
Yeah, I don't think there's a debate.
That one's not even debate. We all love
Talk about
it.
Freddy versus Jason. Let's talk about Freddy versus Jason.
Yeah, let's talk about You're Wrong.
Because everyone. No, I don't.
How come we're debating all movies that are
Do you guys like that?
not
that
even
the team ups?
70s or earlier?
I don't know why a lot of it's in the 80s,
here's
but
the thing: the antiquity of 70s movies and horror fans automatically gives them a pass. All of us like every fucking horror movie ever made.
not everyone, but you're right overall. I
Every
think
fucking horror movie made in the 70s, all of us likes.
I was discussing this with, I think it was
Name one you don't
Garrow.
like.
Beast of Hollow Mountain.
Can we debate?
Oh my God, that movie was terrible.
Big boob.
Right.
Don't look now.
You don't like that?
You just said like Jesus sucks.
Bitch just hit the
I was trying to
shan.
kill Elric.
Jesus wept.
Jesus
Yeah, Book of
wept,
Shadows
baby.
didn't deserve to be on the cover with Don't Look Now. No, do you guys know? But in general, I kind of hate. I'm not into that whole thing. And look, man, I'm not into horror films for that part of it, where we start matching up characters. It's like that, then I'm just. It doesn't mean that can't be a good film or a fun film, but that's at the point where I'm like, no, I would rather read a comic book for that. I don't go to the movies for that experience of like it's like wrestling or some shit. I just don't give a flying fuck. And I'm not saying that that's not possible to be a good movie. I just don't like it.
Then there's a little piece of
But
the
Avengers
child that
is
died
natural,
in you.
and that is a remake of that.
Wrestling.
Yeah, then
Can you not like wrestling?
just.
I didn't say I didn't like wrestling. I said I don't go to the cinema for wrestling. I could watch wrestling on TV. I don't want to watch Freddy vs. Jason. I really don't want to see it.
I'm lost.
Or Chucky versus Bruce Campbell. I don't want to see it, you know?
Who really likes it? You really like Freddy vs. Jason?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, let's hear about it.
But it's not. Look. I accept that it's not a good movie, but
Good shower scene.
no. But I mean, well,
Very good shower scene. Yeah.
Not that good.
Only
yeah,
pays
good.
attention to the TNA.
Yeah, pretty much.
No, I was very good at Jarson.
I don't really have a great defense for it other than, the experience of seeing it. It came out on my birthday that year, and I think I told the story already that we had that huge blackout in the East Coast. That wiped out the whole East Coast.
New York was a trip then.
Came out on my birthday. The theaters were back up and running. I got all I wanted for my birthday was to see it with my friends. We bought like 30 tickets, took up half the audience.
Only 3 of you came? Yeah.
What? No, it's sold out. I have friends, Mike. And it was just a good
Not
experience.
on the Devil's Rejects.
It was.
Oh.
What was that? I didn't even.
I completely missed that crush.
Yeah,
That
man.
was the Devil's Reject show.
No, it's just. I don't know how you can make a good Freddy versus Jason movie.
It's
like
true.
What can you possibly?
Freddy
consider-
lost.
Jesus, you broke this thing.
Bad.
I know, he winks, but fuck that. He is so much more powerful than Jason. It's not even.
By water. How can we use that?
It is.
Freddy bad. Water bad.
It's not even a fight.
Yeah.
But I do love it's one of them. Maybe it's his name or Jason or one of the other ones where the writers are like, we did not write that line. We just want you to know. We know it's stupid.
It is Lenny Poffo versus Andre the Giant. That's what that matchup is.
I
It is a
did
joke.
enjoy the incredibly long
know?
stretch of
Jason is
fight at
Andre
the
the
end,
Giant.
but
No.
It's just entertaining. It's just
Freddy is
it's just
Andre.
fun. And me and my friends, it's like it was a thing that me and my friends got to do for my birthday and just cheered that we saw Freddy versus Jason at them
Yeah, you
fighting
almost
for 20
can't
minutes.
believe that it exists.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like it shouldn't.
I definitely couldn't believe it.
But what we had Frankenstein versus the Wolfman.
Yeah. But I mean, that's like a 2-second fight and then it's over. in that movie.
Yeah,
But
that's
it's
only
the
12
same
seconds.
thing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And I mean, they tried really hard to do. It's because of that Alien versus Predator finally happened.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because
thanks.
they're like,
I would like to see Isabella Johnny from Possession versus Donald Sutherland from Don't Look Now. If I could see a team, I'm just kidding.
I was pitching stuff today to Ryan, like all the Dimension properties. I was like, Living versus Apollo 18.
In 3 seconds, we will turn
Should we talk
all our
about
attention.
Apollo 18?
No, we're
I
going to
actually
talk
liked
about
Apollo
Rawhead
18.
Rex in 3, 2, 1, and Rawhead Rex. He's wearing.
it.
Dave's wearing a
Parker's
T-shirt.
got the
This
T-shirt.
is
It's
like one of my
awesome.
favorite T-shirts. I tried to get it,
A
and they were
fun,
sold
a
out.
much maligned film. Why? It's probably because it's Clive's
It's
first
just Clive
entry,
or
right?
It's
Clive's
Yeah.
first original script.
Right.
Whatever it was maligned, whatever. It's got a fun monster suit.
Yeah, it is a pretty good movie.
It's just sort of charming in that sense. it is the story. It's not a good version of the story, but come on. It's just...
Did Clive have any power back then in terms of how it was being made?
No, it was before Hellraiser.
No, I knew it was before, but I wondered as a writer if the director just did his thing.
No, he sold it off, and the director George Pavlo went off and did his thing in Ireland and made this movie.
The fuck were you thinking, George Pavlo?
Are
you listening in Ireland right now? We're drunker than an Irish.
He was thinking, it's 1985, we have no money, let's get a 6'1" German fucking guy
let's
to
have
be
him
in this
smash
suit
dishes.
and run through a trailer park.
Yeah. But I mean, there's something it's something endearing about him. I wrote an article on FEARNET about how this is charming. It's kind of silly at times, but there's something about the film that I love.
Really
That's it. It totally kicks ass.
Fucking metal, man.
Yes.
I
it is some paganistic metal.
10 years old, and I rewatched it, I don't know, yesterday. And I don't even know how any sort of diehard horror fan could not like it, because it's just sort of like a meat and potatoes monster movie.
Meat and potatoes, but I would love to review it.
But here's what sets it apart is actually the setting. Because as Americans, seeing this monster movie take place in sort of like rural Ireland and trailer parks in Ireland, there's something really interesting about that separates it from just sort of like some B-grade Friday the 13th ripoff.
Yeah.
I think what I liked about it too is like, after I'd read the story before, and then I'd seen the movie, and what impressed me was they still included the urination of the priest scene.
But it's in the movie. It's like a clip in the movie. And it's blurry in the background.
But still, when I read the original story and I read the scene where Rawhead Rex pisses on the priest.
Which is like a 2-page scene, because they refer to it as like it running into his mouth. Yeah, and it's like a baptism.
But still, I was like, always like, when I remember after reading the story going, they're making a Rawhead Rex movie, they'll never include the scene. And the fact that there was something of that scene in it, I was like, oh my God.
I hadn't read the story, and when I watched it yesterday, having not remembered that at all, I actually thought, is he jizzing on that?
Yes. So world's longest orgasm.
Is that monster jizz all over that dude? This movie is incredible.
And I'll give the fact that the movie, the fact that the movie is inspired like people to do model kits and tattoos and T-shirts and everything else of a representation of the character that is so different from what Clive Barker.
He has a brilliant receding hairline.
The fact that Clive imagined something basically that was a giant penis.
Yeah.
Walking around, and the fact that people have embraced the movie version of it so differently is like it's worth that.
It looks cool, and it actually reminded me tonally of something like Silver Bullet or something like that.
That's because ultimately,
let's not defend Silver Bullet.
I like Silver Bullet, but that's a whole other can of worms.
Oh my God,
Gary Busey.
No, I think that ultimately Rawhead Rex, it boils down to a monster on the loose story.
Yeah,
and so if you're a fan of kind of classic monsters, it is that, but it's with a pagan sensibility, and I think that kind of makes it a little bit more fun.
It was like, I remember there was a passage in the book, and I wish I could quote it, but I can't. But there was a moment where the kid sees Rawhead for the first time standing in a field. Mm-hmm. And the movie recreates it in a very, very effective way.
Yeah.
I was like,
that whole scene is really effective.
Got that. They were driving by, and you see Rawhead just standing. I mean,
he's like profile.
Well, I know it's a low budget movie, and they had no money. But they did take some care. They tried their best to respect the story.
Yeah, and
I get that.
And it actually felt dangerous to me, the movie, even though the creature itself, the face is sort of inarticulate. And there's cool things about it. It breathes like fog.
But the funny thing is, it's a big, cool rubber monster movie.
We are at that time of our show where we're going to do a round robin. You have a couple seconds to name anything you haven't named, just one title each person around, because we have now reached 4.5 hour mark. You'll only hear an edited version, but this is 4.5 hours.
Are they going to cut us down?
We're going to start. Let's start with Brian, because Brian has been silent for this last period because he thought you guys were ridiculous.
I've never seen Rawhead Rex.
Oh, really?
Sorry.
You can choose one. Anything.
All right, well, I'll go with Urban Legend 2. It was somebody else's pick, but
yeah, it was mine too.
Okay, I definitely like Urban Legend 2 a lot.
Is that Final Cut? Is that what it's called?
Final Cut. Yeah, it's. I know I said before I don't like the usual the film students or the filmmakers get killed while making a horror movie, but but I think that one mostly works. It's kind of goofy, but there's definitely some really good sequences in it. John Ottman, I wish he directed another movie, and that's about it. Good cast too.
I remember liking it too. I remember thinking it was totally solid.
And it was worth it, whether you liked it or not. It was worth it for one of the best reviews ever. Which was, do you remember the urban legend about the guy in the fencing mask killing his film students? I don't.
I'm torn.
Go ahead.
Go.
All right.
Well, I'm not gonna. We're not gonna talk about Fright Night 2, but you can ask me in private. I genuinely believe it's better than Fright Night 1. I really think it's a great little movie.
It touched his privates.
Brian's pointing to this one because picking Shocker in a lot of those movies. Shocker not so much, but in the early '90s, House of Wax is a film that I remember. It's the
remake.
House of Wax, the remake. I like the original too, but the remake is exactly the kind of movie I hate. It should be the kind of movie where I see the trailer and go, oh, okay, Paris Hilton, all this bullshit. And I found it completely entertaining. I thought the effects were beautiful. I thought the fire sequence were stunning. They burned down a fucking studio in Australia while they're making it. But, look, the drama, I'm sure if I watched it now, I might feel different. That's the thing. Again, I always go back to this with horror more than any other genre. When you see it, it affects you in a certain way. And I saw that, 21, 22, whatever, where I was just like, oh, yeah, these bullshit studio films. I was genuinely impressed. And I thought that guy could make a good film.
I totally agree with you.
I thought it was a really fun movie. For a remake.
Orphan's incredible too.
Yeah, Orphan's great.
And also,
great
House
acting.
of Wax is actually a remake of Tourist Trap, not House of Wax.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a little mixture of the two. But I think that's an interesting film. And I put Howling 2 on here, but really Howling 2 is just the credit sequence. That's true. With Sybil Danning ripping her top off and that new wave playing.
And in the same light, let me say Monster Dog, Alice Cooper.
Yes.
Check it out.
Yeah.
Dave put that on his list, and as soon as I saw the trailer, I wanted to see that movie. So
The director of Troll 2.
Why do you take your headphones off like you're done?
I'm done.
Alice Cooper in Spanish.
Monster Dog.
We'll miss you, Dave.
Mic drop.
To Mr. Rob G.
We didn't get a chance to talk about it, but I'm going to go with
Why
Dr.
are we going to get a chance? Who's fucking calling the clock on us?
Listen, we've got stuff to do. We've got jobs. They've got kids, for Christ's sake.
Hey, she's been asleep for hours.
Mike, you don't have kids.
Father too. I'm going with Dr. Giggles.
But everybody loves Dr. Giggles.
I think so, but
I beg to differ because I hosted a very sparsely attended screening of Dr. Giggles.
And he had fucking Dr. Giggles.
Even Larry Drake doesn't love Dr. Giggles.
When was that?
That was tough to convince Larry Drake to come down to that.
December of 2009.
He did,
It was
finally, yeah.
It was the second horror movie day screening, and it could have been the last.
Larry Drake actually said no, and then just by sheer fate, I was talking to Charles Edward Pogue, the writer of Psycho 3, who is friends with him, and I mentioned to him that Larry didn't want to come to the screening, and he talked to him, and then called Brian back and decided.
And
to
then
show up.
he showed up to
Showed
6
up to
people.
five
About as many people are in the
Was he disappointed or?
I don't know. I couldn't really tell.
Yeah.
He was Benny
All I
from
know is
LA
that
Law.
The Q&A ended. So I said, last question. And somebody was like, can you do the laugh? And he's like, no. That's how the Q&A ended.
How good is he in Darkman, though?
He's great.
Which we watched at Jump Cut, and recently the Blu-ray just came out, and
coming out next month.
He is so fun when he's fighting himself.
Oh yeah,
in that
great.
turnaround. That is a great movie.
That's a great.
And for the
movie.
record, in terms of Dr. Giggles, sometime in the future, in the near future, we should have the director on to do our medical
Manny
malpractice.
Yes,
episode.
medical
Finally.
malpractice
I was
episode.
actually talking to Scott Reynolds about it yesterday, and
Corbin
we're gonna make it
Burnson has
happen.
been tweeting us a lot. Our show, he always hashtags.
serious?
He's just
Really?
He just
it's like-
loves us.
He's
Get
always,
outta here.
Corbin Burnson's always tweeting hashtag Killer B and hashtag LA Law, and he's just such a little whore.
You're insane.
I'm kidding. Corbin Burnson doesn't know who I am, but I'm drinking, so I know who he is.
I ran into him at the Grove one day.
That's
He
the
didn't know
dentist,
who I
not
was.
Dr. Giggles.
Yeah.
The dentist,
Yeah, the
exactly.
dentist. I'm adding to the program.
I'll bring
It's
up a
Major
movie-
League.
I'll bring up a movie and a filmmaker that may open a can of worms and that I hope gets us going for at least another half hour.
Yes.
No,
I'm sleeping here tonight.
I'm a fan of The Happening, and I'm a fan of M. Night Shyamalan.
That's a whole other episode.
Oh my God.
And I've never understood. I remember hearing all of you guys like bitch about The Happening. It's the worst movie of all
I
time.
hosted a screening of The Happening. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but probably ironically.
Yeah.
I remember sitting in The Happening and
what's
half an
happening,
hour
Goat?
into it thinking, everyone's just jumping on this fucking bandwagon. This M. Night, let's bash this guy that started out really hot and maybe hasn't made an Oscar-nominated worthy horror film since then.
Or just worthy.
But no, The Happening, and here's it's similar to The Mangler, where people dismiss it on concept alone. Where whenever you say The Happening, people go, it's the wind.
Because the thing is,
It's the beast.
the opening of The Happening is really cool with everyone hanging themselves and all that shit is really cool.
It's awful
It's
because
after
of
that shit.
I agree with Brian on that.
I've
That's
never
why.
understood.
It's Wahlberg. He kills it for me.
Well, yeah, I
And I like
understand that.
Wahlberg usually, but he is fucking awful in that movie.
He's not great.
He's out
but
of
it doesn't
place.
kill the
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
donkey.
it. He's
And
out of place.
It's similarly how Tippi Hedren doesn't kill the birds or something like that.
Whoa.
Yeah, because
How can you
Tippi
compare?
Hedren-
What? Did you just compare the birds in The
I
Happening?
compare the birds and the Happening because you're talking about lead actors that are maybe not great actors.
Yeah, totally. That was the best special effect
That's the
I've
best
ever
one
heard.
of the night. That's good job, Rob.
I found The Happening's concept to be frightening. I found
no problem with the
and here's the
concept.
thing: M. Night Shyamalan is such an incredible craftsman, an absolutely incredible craftsman.
Actor.
No.
He couldn't overcome
just
the
call him
marketing of that movie
Hackter?
because it was like the first R-rated movie from M. Night Shyamalan.
We created a new
I'm
term tonight,
consistently-
Hackter.
Even in even his most maligned movies like Last Airbender, I'm consistently in awe of his craft, how he stages a scene, how he shoots a scene. And in The Happening, I was just watching this dude who is a phenomenal talent at staging a scene. Watching his craft, I can't say the movie is bad because Mark Wahlberg talks in a whiny voice the whole time.
Who's stumbling now?
What is your favorite?
And the funny thing is, let me ask you this. The funny thing is, you brought up The Happening.
Yeah.
And you brought up all of Shyamalan's movies.
Yeah.
Except
Yeah.
The Lady in Water.
The Lady in
I love The Lady in Water.
Whoa.
Yeah, I liked it too. I actually thought the execution on that was a little clunky,
just
but
got
I
fucked
love
up.
that sort of fantasy.
We're not going home.
We're
I didn't mind The Village. I didn't mind that.
I hated The Village.
That's right.
I hated The Village, but I
Okay,
really
guys.
dug Lady in Water. But I know we're digging ourselves into a
I
trench.
want to ask you, what is the best
like that
M. Night
too.
film? What is your favorite M. Night film if you're on the...
Unbreakable. It has to be
I like Unbreakable
is
too.
An absolute American masterpiece.
I think
Period.
Unbreakable is flawed,
Unbreakable?
but I really like that one.
It's a
No,
masterpiece.
Sixth
Thank you for
Sense
saying it's
is the
flawed.
Sixth Sense is great.
Sixth Sense is the one.
I love the use of M. Night on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Or
That's
wait,
kind of
what's
where I'm
the-
at.
What's with the one with
Devil.
Rosie O'Donnell?
Oh my gosh, I loved
I
Devil.
loved Devil, and it felt
Devil's
like
good.
It
It's
felt
good.
such
It
an
was
M. Night
predictable.
Devil was totally
was
predictable.
Well, of course, there has to be somebody in the elevator.
But the fact that you could predict who it was in the
Least
elevator
expecting
is
woman.
predictable.
I thought, can you
That's
imagine?
why
thought it was
Devil
a chick
didn't
from
want
Dude, can you
Falls.
imagine being given a script to like, oh, this whole thing's in a fucking elevator?
No, I
movie
love
is
that. No, I love that fact.
I want to
But
say
would
one thing,
still-
guys, and let's be honest right here.
I would
If
still
you
go,
believe
the redhead
that
is
Killer
predictable.
POV is worth a rondo, I want you to go onto the Rondo site right now, and I want you to nominate
Are we
Killer
are
POV for
you
Rondo.
guys nominating?
I
And
don't
I
think
want you
we
to
are
nominate
yet.
this
Why
episode
not?
as the great episode.
Episode.
This is the standout. Yes, exactly. Forget your Emmys, your Oscars, and I want you to just hand us your awards. Last year,
Drunk
Leanne
car
Spider-Baby
fans
won it.
defending
She deserved
your
it.
shit.
She worked for it, and she
nothing
fucked
would
her
make me
way
happier
to the plagiarism.
Nothing would make me happier.
Man.
I finally said it. Anyway, let's go to the next
Okay,
title.
Dave
Next
Parker.
title, Dave Parker.
What's your guilty pleasure?
My guiltiest pleasure? My guiltiest pleasure.
Hey now.
Yeah, this sounds like it's getting body here.
You have any beer?
It's ladies in the water, isn't it?
Anymore?
Yeah.
I mean,
It's a 12-pack.
I you know what? It might be,
Destined to
but
write something that's really important. Fucking lady in the water.
But there are definitely
I-
issues.
you know,
but he's such a good craftsman.
trick or treat.
Everything means something.
Wait,
The musical? 80s musical?
Trick or treat.
Treat.
I love it.
Heavy metal
I love
all
it.
the way.
It's a little long, but it's a
There's
lot of
not
fun.
a heavy metal movie that I don't like, including Shock 'em Dead.
Or Rock and Roll Nightmare.
Rock and Roll Nightmare is
really? They're real
Thor is
bands?
just genius in general.
Rocktober Blood.
My gosh.
Wait, I think we have to talk about this very quickly. This fucking Venom that was in your
Yeah, I rewatched it.
But I only saw the
rewatched it
trailer, but
just
I
for
had
this.
to be like, really?
I'll
Like,
go to the bathroom while you talk about that.
Okay.
because who wrote Models being killed by a wrestler?
That was me.
That was you.
Yes, because and I have to admit, and this is probably I shouldn't say this on air, but the first time I saw Venom, 2005, I was not. I'd smoked a lot of stuff before I saw it, and so I
Should have made it better.
I remembered minutia of it. Like I remembered that it was set in New Orleans, and I remembered that
You thought it was Creature.
No,
Pretty much the same movie. Come on.
Oh, no. But much better.
They're
Really?
both
Much better?
swampy Monster on the Lucy films, but I rewatched it yesterday. I rewatched it last night, and that's when I posted Models versus Wrestler.
Yeah, I thought
because
that's
I do
pretty
have to
apt.
say the cast is a little, but I mean this might have been the time.
little?
It's 2005. This is when we had all the Not Another Teen horror films, and so every single horror film that was coming out around that time, they're all teens in their 20s. And they all look like Abercrombie models. And this was totally there too. And so it was pretty much, watching a very built guy who was named after a jazz musician. But the thing that I did like is it had kind of a Pumpkinhead sensibility.
Voodoo, a voodoo feel to it and everything else. And that's why I liked it. I was like, oh, this killer, and they did the effects and they put him in all the makeup and they made him look like sort of a snake, sort of like voodoo.
It had cool
Killer.
elements to it.
I'm not that bad.
But I saw Cry Wolf. And I
Cry
saw
Wolf, yeah.
Venom.
Did you like Cry Wolf?
No.
Wait,
No,
which
Cry
one was
Wolf's
Cry
shit.
Wolf?
Cry Wolf
no,
is the prep school.
The ski mask version.
Oh, okay.
Bon
But
Jovi.
I just have like these. Like,
The director
very
of Cry Wolf's a
vague,
big fan of the show.
Venom, I
Sorry.
There's a scene where she's like
Jeff
in a coffin or
Wadlow, who
something.
Sorry,
directed
Jeff
Kick-Ass
Wadlow.
2.
Hold on, guys. There's like 6 conversations going
Yes, we
on.
need
I don't
to-
know what's
yes.
going on.
Brian, please take the floor.
Actually, it's to me, isn't
Yes.
it? Yes.
Oh.
I was interrupting her. Thank you.
All right. She
Okay.
had her 20
And
minutes.
Elric Kane.
Look, the one I really wanted defended was Idle Hands.
No, but you don't need to
I don't
defend
think
that.
there's no defense
No,
on that. I
everyone
love
loves
the
that.
That's
movie.
awesome.
That is a fucking good movie.
Most
Yeah, it's
people
great.
didn't like that
Devin
movie.
saw top of his game.
Most
Like, great
people
performance.
didn't like that movie
Yeah.
on its first run.
I don't remember that. I just remember it being a really good film.
They really hated it.
Who made
And I
it? Who made
really-
that? I don't know.
Rodman Flender. who was mentioned in The Player, the film The Player
Really?
by Robert Altman. Rodman Flender was a Corman director.
Oh,
Really? I don't
the
know.
more you know.
He did The Unborn.
The Unborn. Another decent
I like
little
The
movie.
Is
Unborn. That
Devin
was
Sawa
like
still with us?
Brooke Adams.
baby
Yes.
with pointy object.
Has he been in films?
No.
Devin, if you're listening to us, which I'm sure you are. Devon?
Okay. Okay.
Wait.
Putting the clock.
Well, I'm
But
gonna be.
wait. No, he's not. Who comes back in Cheap Thrills? Who's like sort of made a comeback?
Ethan Embry.
Ethan Embry.
Okay.
So the two that I will defend, I'm going to be true to the fans here. And this morning on the Facebook page, I noticed that there were requests
True
of
to the fans.
you have to add true to the fans. There were 2 comments that said, make Becca justify this. And one was for Tix and one was for Hellraiser 3. So I will be quick with them.
Good. 'Cause I don't have the energy to fight you.
Okay.
Hellraiser 3 is the best. There you go.
Thanks.
Sure.
No.
Hellraiser 3 is a lot of fun.
My Tix, I will say,
Jesus Christ, Mike.
The CD.
No. Before you go on, it isn't about is Hellraiser watchable or is it fun? Because sure, it's a watchable movie. It's that she said,
I said it's
that
better than
Hellraiser
2.
3 is better than 2, and that's like saying that Godfather 3 is better than Godfather 2, and that is the end of the
it is
conversation.
not.
It is word for word saying that.
is
Sofia
not.
Coppola had CDs in her face in Godfather 3. I would agree with you.
Exactly. She practically did have CDs.
Godfather 3. That's the problem.
okay.
But
First
tell
off,
us what you think.
okay, no, the reason, and I mean, I greatly appreciate Hellraiser 2. It's a continuation of the first one for me. I like Hellraiser 3.
Opens up a whole world.
It does. It does. It opens
Incredible.
up a whole world. But I
Tony
like
Randall.
Hellraiser 3 because
Hats off, sir.
what? And I like Hellraiser 2 because it brings in Leviathan, who's one of
Yeah.
my favorite characters.
All right. Yeah,
His
I agree.
tattoo is on my leg. So
He's not a character. He's just a thing.
he's a being. But the reason that I like 3 so much is for me as a fan
CD
of the Hellraiser
Cenobite.
theory.
It was the DJ Cinnabite. Because you had a thing for like,
Anthony Hickox was totally solid. You know, he was a totally.
She is a big. You guys don't realize she's a big Kid and Play fan, and she thought of the Cenobite as a kid. Yeah, that's
House party bitches.
No, defend yourself. Defend yourself.
Continue.
I'm getting a high top fade. Fuck
When
it.
this podcast posts, the picture has to be all of this liquor.
Yes.
Because people have to understand.
Funny thing is,
People
Parker the
50
Major
beer
is ready
bottles.
to kill himself right now.
Should we tell? I'm going to tell them.
Parker
I'm
is.
going to tell them.
Okay, guys,
They're about to
here's-
spider
I
against the
actually
wall.
have
Come in here and have some.
a legitimate. Parker, do you
This
need a beer?
is the final broadcast
So much
of Killer POV. If you are listening, this
The
is our
reason
final show.
that I like Hellraiser 3
Goodbye.
is because for me as a fan at the time, I loved Hellraiser 1 and 2 because they set up a story. But what I really liked about it was where the Epic Comics were able to take it. That they took it someplace that Clive Barker had started it, and they were able to pick up the mythos and said, let's use this and create our own stuff. And that was one of the first times that it kind of stepped away from the Frank and the Christie and the Julius story that we've got. And it said, let's see if we can apply this same formula and the same parable to a completely different scenario. And that's why I loved the Epic Comics of the 90s. And it's the same reason I love part 3.
Let's talk about part 4. Part 4 is pretty cool too. Bloodlines is totally interesting.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
I will agree, and I think that's the last one that is really in the mythology because it was pure. It was still written by Peter Atkins.
I think 4 is the only time in the series where a sequel was slightly better than the one before. Because otherwise, that series just.
What was interesting?
Are you saying there's something wrong with 3?
No, but what was
I'm saying it's
interesting?
better than 5 through 9.
What was
Okay,
interesting
that I will
about-
agree
What was
with.
interesting about Bloodline is it really delved into here's the history of the box,
Yeah.
and then going through different time periods. And
It was ambitious. You appreciate the ambition.
The
Yeah.
problem with 3, the reason I didn't like 3, apart from being way too Americanized compared to the other two, which are just. I mean, even as a kid, I didn't even realize that. Just like, this doesn't feel right. It was just like, this like bland locales, like the.
Oh, it's sort of
Oh,
the
are you
super.
kidding? I love the
But it was
locales.
sort of the Superman 2 also because they have the street that blows up and the Cenobites walking around and fighting and shit.
Yeah, but I
Yeah,
think
that's
it's
true.
like cheap, like North Carolina, like empty street. Like, where the fuck is the populace of the city?
Yeah.
But I liked that it was set in kind of this gothy rage club that for some reason was playing Soup Dragons, which is like the most unlikely band ever to put in that scenario. So it's like, cool, we should be playing KMFDM, but here's Soup Dragons.
But I think it was John Bush and like his band at the time. Armored Saint. It was Armored Saint at the time.
Let's
Armored
debate
Saint.
bands.
The Anthrax singer that I love.
Are you on for another?
I like that Rob put Fright Night the remake.
That's gonna have to be
Yeah,
another.
No, but I think we all think it's a great movie.
I like it.
How can you justify the remake?
I
You
like
being
it.
a lover of the original.
I do, and I like it for its own because it's its own thing.
I liked it better than the the original.
But is it a good movie?
Yeah, I think it's a good
so.
movie. I thought it was a funny movie.
I think it's in
It's
the
a good little rear window. It's very.
everybody's nodding no.
Disturbia.
In the
I like that.
in the context of what vampire movies
said-
are.
I think it's Rear Window and Disturbia.
No.
I
It's
said
shaking
it's
your
very
head no.
Disturbia.
Nodding is yes.
Sorry.
You're going, it's Disturbia, which is a shitty remake of Rear Window.
No. It's a youth pop version of Rear Window, and you can't discount a movie for
That is
succeeding
silly.
as its at its own.
I think it's very
Disturbia
lowbrow
did
that
not
you
want to be-
picked on Shia LaBeouf at a time like that. To pull in
It's
Disturbia
low right now, Dave
at a
Parker.
time when so much is on
You know
at
what,
stake
that dude
about society, about culture, and you're picking on the guy who writes Clouds in the Sky. He still fucking dreams, and he dreams big.
Art is dead, Elric. Art is dead.
Unbelievable. No, I'm not going to defend it.
But it's a good movie. I like it.
Defend
I
that
agree.
guy.
will not defend the
I'm
movie.
disappointed that more sound effects haven't made appearances. What else do you have? Do you have fireworks?
Oh, he's been making them all the time. We've just been talking over top of them. Toilets have been flushing, babies crying.
When you listen back.
Can I say this?
Nope.
The film.
What's the line?
You can.
All out.
Go ahead.
Final thoughts.
Final thoughts.
Final thoughts is like the film that I think that people like should rediscover is the film Society.
Yes.
No, but
We've talked about that. It's like every week on the show.
Huge
Okay,
fan.
okay. I think
He's on top
that's
of it.
And it
that's
will.
something.
You know what? But I think it's accessibility too. I think just people. It just was never that accessible.
Okay, cool.
I hope. I hope
just
that's the
want
reason
people
Americans.
to like check that
Society's
movie
great.
out.
Society is a fantastic movie.
Totally right. That's Brian Used.
Really
Brian used
original.
easily his best thing he
It's
did.
really original, really interesting.
And it's in the top 5 things Billy Warlock did. Sorry.
top 5, top 1.
Billy, I don't even know if he did anything besides that in
He
Baywatch.
did, he did Baywatch. So top 1.
Top 1 thing, yeah. I think that this show
is the longest we've
no,
ever
but
done.
it's not only
amazing.
the longest, but it's changed the world.
It's changed my world. I've looked at the Mangler different.
Yeah.
Yes,
I've
this is
looked
true.
at.
Wait, actually, before we finish,
Will you
before,
rewatch Book of Shadows?
okay,
Hey,
I will
guys,
do this.
come on,
Okay,
let's do
I
it.
promise. Does anyone have
Dave,
Book of
come
Shadows?
over for
I do.
Dracula
I own
3D.
Book of
Okay,
Shadows.
have it.
I promise to watch Book of Shadows by next week. That one I will watch by next week, and I want to watch the Mangler. I don't want to watch.
Rob, if you
Book of
host
Shadows.
Mangler,
I
I'm
want to
coming.
see the Mangler again.
No, I don't.
Yeah, like when it came out.
Dracula 3D.
And we'll watch Metallica.
I need to see it.
Through the Never.
But I think that's about it.
which I have.
All right, we're all done.
Yeah,
I
if
love
you
that
host a
movie.
screening of Dracula,
I will
okay,
never
we're all
watch
talking at
Hold on,
once,
hold on,
guys.
Assault to
Hold on,
Take
wait a minute.
again.
Through the
down.
Never. Come on, Metallica. Through the Never. Come over.
I'll watch it.
3D.
I'm there.
And we are,
Anytime.
and we've all
You have
decided
3D?
we're going to watch
You should watch
976
it.
Evil Part 2 by Jim Warnowski together, holding hands
It
and
has a lot of
chanting.
boobs.
No, the
The effects in that are terrible.
Okay, guys, I'm going to bring it back down for a
life
sec.
segment.
Bring it down and
Bring it down. Rebecca's grandfather died.
But she doesn't. Wait. But she doesn't know yet. Rebecca, to you.
He's been dead for 20 years.
Oh, but Becca, he's back.
Oh my god, I'm dizzy.
This is my reading rainbow summary moment. Ultimately, guys, I think that art is always in the eye of the beholder. And just because a movie doesn't strike a chord with Rob does not mean that for me it doesn't become something, you know, that is going to create a cathartic moment in me. But I think that that's what the beauty of movies is that each person gets to perceive it under their own lens.
Especially Freddy's dead.
Fuck yes!
To Dave.
And I would like to say,
Coldwater.
Coldwater is playing at the New Film Festival online. But what I would like to say is, Rebecca's right. Art is not in the eye of the beholder. And
It's not, or it is.
it's not, and I'm at this point.
We're all pretty tipsy right now, right? Okay.
Thank God.
No, but I think we do agree that bad movies just don't exist. There's a bad movie to you,
Thank
but to
God
somebody.
bad movies exist because that's my career.
Somebody out
There's
there
a
likes
wonderful-
Deathbed. But remember that. Somebody out there likes Deathbed, a movie. Like, there are almost borderline. Manos Hands of Fame.
There's
Somebody
a
out there that's a
fantastic-
cult.
Somebody's favorite movie.
Exactly. And that's the great thing about what
And
we
the
do.
thing is, if that didn't happen, there wouldn't be a $20 million biopic of Ed Wood that
Yep.
existed.
Exactly.
And there's a wonderful quote out there: to love movies is to love all movies. And that means no matter how much I hate a film, I still have to appreciate what it is at the end of the day, which is cinema.
Because it's very hard to get done.
Yeah.
It's hard.
You know?
to make a
What's the
movie.
And
one?
it's-
What's the one Joe said? It was like some people love movies. Some people love the movies they love. I like that one. It's just like
And then some of the people who
Yeah,
come to
sure,
Jump
okay.
Cut only love their movies and walk outside when we share Rosemary's Baby.
Exactly.
Oh,
Everyone except the three of us. No, but I think it is
know
good.
anyone that made this movie? I'm gonna
Yeah, we don't know. That's not us. No, but
Joe Bouchard into the
I think
store.
we are people here. I think Joe stayed for it. Joe Bouchard stayed. Joe did stay. He stayed for the first half. I think we are a bunch of people who really genuinely love movies, and
We are.
all of this is just fun.
Yes.
And tonight's episode is just silliness and fun. But sometimes you do watch something like somebody says, "Oh, Shocker's the best thing ever," and you're like, "Really? What is good about it?" And you try to decode it, and it's fun, and it makes you
can't believe
rewatch
we
it.
didn't talk about Shocker.
Yeah.
tonight.
I know.
That's a whole episode.
That's a whole
Well,
episode.
that's going to come under the best soundtracks of all time episode.
Sure.
Heavy metal soundtrack.
Best heavy metal.
Love it.
I'll do
Dangerous
Shocker without
Toys.
these two interrupting.
Yeah. We want to thank all our guests tonight.
Yes.
Thank
Yes.
you very
You guys.
much. Thank you
Plugs.
guys.
Quick plugs before we wrap up. Killer POV, we're hosting a screening at Jump Cut Cafe, a
Yep.
private screening
Of a
Thursday, February
secret
6th.
film
Yep.
that you cannot see in public.
It is
All you have
very
to do-
British. It is very pagan. It's got a lot of nudity,
If
a
you like
couple of
Wicker
rape
Man.
scenes. There's some groping in it, and a lot of Satanism, which just means it's like right up my alley.
Claw?
There is a claw.
Yeah.
We talked about it on the show. You're invited. Just either go on our Facebook and message us, or message us on Twitter. And
Yeah,
we'll
if
give
you
the
message
info.
us, we'll totally hook you up and give
Yeah,
you the
come
info.
join us.
And
It'll be fun to watch that
it's a
together.
private
And,
invite.
you know, if you think that this episode is worthy of a rondo, because you who are listening gave Leanne a rondo last year, and then they stripped it of her. We want her rondo. I want the actual one that touched her
yes.
hand. I want it. I want it so bad I can taste it.
dead hands.
Before we wrap, also, if you noticed, they changed over the comment system on Geek Nation's website. It's now Discus, so you can log in either Facebook or Twitter, whatever.
Please leave us some comments.
Yeah, comments on it there. Please go on iTunes, rate us, review us.
And this
We've
episode
gotten
does not end here. We will continue this conversation on our Facebook. So if you guys have films that you think are underrated, write and we'll debate it on there. This could be a fun thing to keep going for a week.
But the other thing is
online,
it'll keep going at the Jump Card Cafe.
Wherever.
This will keep going at the bar, at Rob's house when we go to Screen Dracula 3D.
The point is, tell us the movies you love, and we can debate whether they're good. And I'll watch Book of Shadows and see what you guys are talking about.
You'll come around on it.
But I'm not rewatching Phantoms. I just am not rewatching. But I want to see Monster Dog like a motherfucker.
I've been trying to make you. I want to see Monster Dog.
Alice Cooper in Spanish?
I kind of want to see that one too.
Yeah, let's do that.
Hell yeah.
Huge special thanks to our recording engineer Parker. He's a
Thank you. The man has the patience of a saint.
He's a saint here who deals with our crap every freaking week,
and more so this time than ever.
And more so than ever, longest episode. Thank you, Brian Collins, for coming on again. Thank you, Mike Williamson. Support Secret 16. Thank you, Dave Parker.
I'm drunk.
We all are.
We'll let you know about Coldwater. You can see his new movie.
Yeah, we'll let you know about
it. It's good and fun.
Yeah.
Next week we have a very small show. And no big deal. It's only a guy who, Night of the Demons, Witchboard, nothing big.
Yeah.
Kevin Tenney in the house.
In time for the Scream Factor releases.
Exactly. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be fun.
And he is a really funny guy.
So thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.